What are you doing?
What? I'm trying to get my glasses, man.
Are you ready?
For what?
Got the Badonkagonk.
What are we doing?
Badonkagonk. Guys, hello. Welcome to Badonkagonk.
I wish you had told me we were doing Badonkagonk.
Why do you think we're sitting here?
When?
Hey, guys. Welcome to Badonkagonk, our Star Wars podcast, where we talk about all kinds of Star Wars-related things. Mm-hmm. And it's been a little while since our last one.
It has.
It's been a busy month. And we also have a busy month coming up, too, soon.
Let's be frank. It's been a busy 7 years.
Well, sure, I guess so, yeah.
It always feels like you're constantly putting a new rail in front of the train, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I got the book done last night. Yeah.
We
even had 2 extra weeks.
I had a lot of time where I was attempting to listen to it while preparing stuff for Pokemon, but I would find myself thinking too much about what I was doing with Pokemon.
Yeah.
And then be like, shoot, what just happened? Rewinding and stuff.
Sure.
So, but I have it all done. I did it.
Gotcha.
It's good.
Yep.
It was also good. But we are going to be talking about Thrawn, the second book of the first trilogy. Alliances.
Yes.
Which is going to be a lot of fun. Also, at the end of the podcast, or towards the end, after we finish talking about Thrawn, we're going to start with that, and then we're going to get into questions, because so often we always say we're going to do questions, but then we have other topics that we are going to talk about, and then we either never get to them, or we take one.
Yeah,
so.
We Kevin Smith it. He famously has that one special where he would do Q&As. He would go to different cities and do Q&As. And one special, he took one question and talked about it for 2 hours.
Yeah, I can see doing that.
And I'm like, I would never do that.
And then we do that.
We do a Star Wars thing, and we could do that.
So
questions.
We do want to take questions. We will probably prioritize Thrawn-related ones once we're done with the book.
Yeah.
Discussion. And then we can go into whatever other
What types of questions are you looking for?
Questions. I don't know.
Here's an example of a
prequel
question.
Questions. How about that?
Prequel questions?
Yeah, I like those. Those
okay.
are good.
A question for an example would be, what is the worst lightsaber fight in the prequels?
Oh, are we going to talk about that now?
Maybe we'll talk about that
later.
later.
We'll see if that's a question later.
We'll see if it's a question.
We won't talk about that now.
Unless someone does a question.
Later.
Later.
But first, we got to talk about Admiral Thrawn and this Thrawn book of alliances.
Yes.
Which I thought was great.
Yeah, we the last time we did a book review, it was Thrawn, right?
Thrawn.
And we had a little tiny thing in there where he's like, I've met General Skywalker before. And I'm like, you met General Skywalker before?
It's like, what? When?
When? Now we know.
Which is very different from, at least from what I understand of him, from, the original trilogy of Legends, right? The Heir to the Empire.
Yep.
Where it's he's more of a after, he's during the Empire and then after the Empire's gone person. But here, we get to see him during the Clone Wars.
Right.
I love this book.
Right.
Having, it was
to learn so much more about the Chiss Ascendancy.
I know, right? It was a story from Clone Wars and a story from Rebels.
It was.
And I was like, this is great. I love this.
So after Ahsoka leaves the Jedi Order is the time frame for the Clone Wars segment. And then between seasons 3 and 4 of Rebels.
Yes.
I knew exactly where I was. I could add all these things to Anakin, to Vader, to Padme, to all these characters.
Yeah.
And I was certain. Sometimes in the High Republic, I've loved what we listened to the High Republic before, but I get lost in the galaxy.
Sure.
Whereas in this era, I know exactly where I am.
No, we've had so much content, I think, around this time frame, or both of these time frames, I guess, that I knew exactly where we were, and I think that helps me too with picturing and imagining where we are or what we're doing. And no, I like that. I loved we have this. After Rebels Season 3, they're talking about Adalon and Bendu. Yeah. Maybe not saying Bendu, but being that creature, you know? But, they're talking about those things. I'm like, okay, I know exactly where we are with this. So here's Thrawn and Vader doing this stuff.
It's so I love how Timothy Zahn does that. Because I've read the Heir to the Empire trilogy and his old Thrawn, and obviously that had to change to fit into new canon and stuff. But he has both, elements that he calls back to that, but he recontextualizes it in the new canon. For example, what was the name of the maneuver Ahsoka created? And then Thrawn asked Padme about it. He said, Anakin got that from his...
they mentioned a maneuver. It started with an M.
I think I wrote it down. Marge Sable?
Maybe.
The Torgrutan flower.
Okay.
Right? So Ahsoka comes up, and we see this in Rebels.
Okay.
During the episodes where...
In Rebels or Clone Wars?
No, I'm sorry. In Clone Wars. See this in Clone Wars. Ahsoka... messes up, gets a lot of her pilots killed. Do you remember this episode?
That was, weren't they trying to get this, Ryloth stuff?
Yeah,
it was supplies to Ryloth?
Yeah, it was Ryloth, and Ahsoka does this maneuver where she tilts the ship, and then everybody comes out the back, and then surrounds all at once, right?
Okay, yeah.
And Thrawn asks about that, and she calls it the Marge Sable. But the Marge Sable was a maneuver Thrawn did in Heir to the Empire, or talked about in Heir to the Empire. So Timothy Zahn recontextualizes something you see in Rebels, something that you got in the old book, and adds it new. That's why he's so
That's
good.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's neat that it was in Heir to the Empire.
Yeah. I mean,
that's really neat.
I love that guy. And this book actually is the catalyst of one of the greatest and worst things I had happen in my life when it came to Star Wars. I think I've told you about this, but I was over in Parkersburg. I was going to a toy show there, and around the corner, and there is Timothy Zahn.
Yes.
This was 4 years ago.
Yeah. I remember.
There's Timothy Zahn, and he's selling and signing Thrawn alliances. He has the books there. You can buy it for, $30, and he'll sign it.
That's cool.
And this was at a time where I was like, I can't read any of the Star Wars books because one day Badonkagonk will exist, and we'll do it then. So I was like, oh, my God, I love you and everything you do. And he's like, great. Have you read the book? And I'm like,
not yet.
Yeah, I'm going to, though. And I bought one, and I signed it, and I put it on my shelf, and I never touched it. He signed the inside copy
That's cool.
of it. It was really cool. But it was one of those things where I'm like, I'm meeting Timothy Zahn. This is amazing. And, man, I feel like I'm not doing my Star Wars homework enough.
Sure.
So then I went home, got my Grand Admiral Thrawn convention-exclusive Black Series, drove back, had him sign that too. So I made up for it. But that was this book.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's neat. No, I mean, I think I have really enjoyed Timothy's storytelling that he has.
Yeah.
And also coupled with Mark Thompson reading it for me on Audible and stuff like that.
I love Mark Thompson.
He does so well. Like there's different characters where I'm like, that one doesn't sound as good, but there's so many of them that sound so good, and Thrawn is just so good sounding in this, and I just love listening to him be Thrawn. It's great.
I got more of a kick than I thought I would with the Padme Thrawn pairing when they have to go up to the roof.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know why. I was just like, this is fucking sweet.
Well,
this is so cool.
There's the idea of like, man, here's Padme, and she's interacting with Thrawn, which I never thought happened, right? But it's just cool because like I like this character, and both of these books have done things for Thrawn where
it recontextualizes a lot.
I don't just feel like he's just a terrible, evil villain kind of person.
Yeah.
Like I feel like he has his own mission and agenda, and I understand that. And a lot of that is also shown in this book too, of like, they discuss where his loyalties lie and stuff too.
Yeah.
And with the title of the next book, I'm really curious to see what we're doing with that. Which, by the way, in case we don't say, the next book we're going to do will be Thrawn Treason. And I
can't wait.
The next podcast we're going to do will be on August 3rd, I believe it is.
August 3rd.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that will be the next podcast as well. So.
Everybody, you got your homework. We're trying to get these Thrawn books, at least the first trilogy, done before Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Right? And I know that that's also a thing where it's, we might talk about this later, but, I kind of hope some of this shows up in Ahsoka,
Sure.
Because Thrawn's motivation, it's the whole point of the book, right? Alliances and treason, the follow-up to this. But Vader, Thrawn, that might be one of my favorite pairings that I've read in a book for a very long time. I love those two together.
And coupling it with seeing Thrawn and Anakin back in the past was a lot of fun, too.
Yeah. I thought that Thrawn was not going to like Anakin as much as he did.
Yeah, but
Anakin's
he
brash, and Anakin just does things. But he used Anakin so well. Every strength Anakin has, Thrawn used it to his advantage. And respected him for it. Not just I don't respect my hammer. He's a tool. But there's something about the final part of this book where, he has that classic Star Wars line, I know.
Sure.
And it means so much more than just, I know, Anakin Skywalker died. Sure, I've heard about that. They informed me. But when Vader says Anakin Skywalker is dead and Thrawn looks at him and goes, I know. He knows you're Anakin Skywalker, and I know that guy I respect is gone.
I love I love Thrawn working towards he has thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Thrawn's so good at reading people, and I love at the end of the last book when he walks up and it's I can't tell his facial expressions. I can't read Vader. So what do you have to do? And throughout this whole book, there's body languages that Timothy's writing about, and I'm like, man, all these things that he's writing between body languages. The responses that Darth Vader has. Yeah. These are the things he has to look at for Thrawn to try to piece together to the general he met years ago, right?
Yeah.
And there's one
man full of
there's one specifically. Like, there's at one point whenever he leaves a comment, because this story here, we take place over on a planet Batuu, I believe. Right?
Batuu, which is Galaxy's Edge.
Galaxy's Edge,
right?
With
the Black Spire outpost.
The Black Spire, yeah. So they went to this Outer Rim planet back in the Clone Wars because Padme's like handmaiden, one of them, had gone there, and she was going to meet with them with information and stuff. And
it's
Anakin,
notably the furthest like Republic-controlled or aligned thing out in the Outer Rim
that they know
in
of,
the
right?
unknown regions.
Yeah. So like, there's that with Padme going on her own, and then Anakin, unrelated to the Republic, goes as well to save her because she hasn't come back and she's having problems and he needs to find her and stuff. And we have the experiences with Thrawn and Anakin helping to find Padme and working together in that, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
There's lots of elements there where like Thrawn kind of shows up to help at the very end, but it feels like he's watching Anakin and trying to see what he can do and how strong are the Jedi. I've never seen a Jedi before, you know? Like, what are these people like?
And that's compounded by the lore drop we get about the Chiss Ascendancy and their relationship to the Force.
Yeah.
And their relationship to Skywalker.
I thought that was really interesting, too.
That gave me chills.
Yeah.
That gave me chills. That was like the Force at work.
Well, I love the build-up to that, too, because I wasn't ready for that with the Rebel side of things, right?
Yeah.
So having their build-up of what they did, and I like jumping back and forth between the two, because some had really, really cool moments. One of them was there's an argument over, and I thought this was great, too. There's an argument with the Rebel side, Thrawn and Vader, on where his allegiance lies, and if they need to go after the Grisk, I think is what they were called, right?
Yep.
If they need to go after them, because this is a Chiss problem. This is not a Empire problem.
Yeah.
And Vader is confronting Thrawn on, you are not being loyal to what the mission should be. And I love the pairing because previously in the Clone Wars time frame with Anakin and Thrawn, Anakin at one point is like, I gotta go save Padme, and he's like, your mission should be this.
Yeah.
This is your mission.
Yeah.
Don't go get Padme. Finish this because this is important to your Republic.
Yeah.
And it mirrored so well with like Thrawn being in control and then being like, is Thrawn out of control? Is he, where does his loyalties lie? Is he being treasonous, Or is this a threat to the Empire?
Yeah.
And he is talking about how dangerous it could be with both of those. And I really like those mirrors and stuff.
Me too.
And to the fact of when I was saying about Thrawn like reading Darth Vader, trying to figure out who he is, there was one moment in it. I want to say it was during, they come back to Batuu, and there's a moment where they're looking at like this moon, and like, what are they doing? And Thrawn's like, they're moving the moon or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, that doesn't make sense. Like Vader's just like,
make sense.
Like, what do you mean they're moving the moon or whatever, right? And then I love, after that part, we jump back into Clone Wars at one point.
Yeah.
And while they're talking about, I think it's the battle droids and what they're made of and stuff. When they're talking about that, Anakin goes, that doesn't make sense. And I was like, that's what Vader said. And it's like these little similarities. Like even Thrawn talks about like cadences, maybe tone is different, but cadences are the same. Or maybe cadences are different, but tone is the same.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's literally writing the same character, and he has him say similar things because this is, it's not the same character, but it is the same character,
Yeah.
And I love like those can be little nods and clues to Thrawn being like, this is Anakin Skywalker.
I mean, it's why Timothy Zahn is so good. Like, he understands the point. Like, the Thrawn and Vader relationship in this underlines and underscores the one thing that Anakin and Vader both share, which is only a Sith deals in absolutes. It's one or the other. There's no in between. Thrawn is either working for the Empire or he's working for the Ascendancy. You can't do both. And Thrawn's like, why not?
Why can't I do both?
Why can't I do both? Anakin never learned that lesson. He doesn't learn it until Luke asks for help. He's like, oh, I can do something. I can do this. That's when Vader realizes he can do that, and Anakin comes back, Like, it's such a core part of the character. And I know, often memed, about the absolutes and how Obi-Wan, isn't that in itself an absolute? And like, I understand that philosophy-wise. We can go down that rabbit hole one day if we want to, and why I do think it does make sense. It's just a funny meme.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's core, right? It's like victory or revenge. You know, like they have that conversation. But yeah, the Chiss Ascendancy or the Empire, and Thrawn is a person that can have multiple goals and not betray you. Like I love, like when Thrawn just left with the gravity well generator or whatever.
Yeah.
Like he just left. I'm like, God, dang it. And then he came back with a lightning gun. You know,
like yes.
He's like, I said I had to prioritize my mission.
My mission
say
first.
I was leaving.
Yeah,
that was so good.
I love that because Padme thought he was gone.
I know.
You know.
Yeah.
And then he's just kind of like Anakin. I love him just being like, all right.
I know.
He's like, what do I say? You know.
He's my favorite kind of smart character, Thrawn. You know, like I can compare it to characters like L from Death Note.
Sure.
Right, where he is smart, and that's his character. He's smarter than you, and nothing you can do about it. And you know, he doesn't really care about how you feel about him. Like Thrawn is similar in that way, but he does it like accidentally. Like so many times in this book and in the last book, Thrawn says something and people take offense to it just because, well, you think you're so smart, and then it turns like, oh, yeah, he is.
Yeah, right.
He is that smart.
Yeah,
and we have to respect him. You know.
No,
I love that in the character.
In the moment too, where you're talking about where like he comes back. The other thing I loved about that too, in the chapter right before where we have Vader and Thrawn, you have a moment where they're talking about, and this whole time they've been doing this thing like double vision, or Anakin's doing double vision. You know?
Yeah.
And it's like the way of them kind of seeing in the Force, kind of getting like a premonition of like blaster bolt coming to my chest, you know, blaster bolt coming to my head and blocking that. And
that one part, he's like, chest.
Yeah. And then Vader here is like using it in the way that the Chiss children. So we have these Chiss children who have this Force sensitivity.
Such a cool lore drop.
Premonition type of thing, right? Like they are used as basically like flight navigators.
Yeah.
Because
they're nav computers.
Yeah, because their ships don't have the technology for it, whatnot, but they use these children. And the reason they use children is because like the Force sensitivity seems to wear off as they get older.
Yeah.
So like maybe Thrawn could have been Force sensitive at one point and had this premonition.
That's interesting.
But it's worn off over time. But it also seems like it's more of a female thing.
Yeah, primarily. He said that it's rare that males will get it, but it's primarily female and it's children.
You know, maybe Thrawn could have had it at some point, which could
you
have
know,
been interesting.
there was one part when he's talking about it, and he has this kind of like look like off into the distance, like 1,000-yard stare in a way. I'm like, so he has to either personally know, or it was him. And I'm
could it
kind
be
of
him?
like,
could it be a family member?
Sure, and I'm kind of conflicted. Like, I love Thrawn in that he's not a Force user. He's just another threat or force in this galaxy that has nothing to do with the mystical side, right? So, like, initially, my thought was, like, I don't want him to be a Skywalker. I want, you know, like, but with the idea that, like, this is something that faded. So if Thrawn looks at the Force and is confused, or, you know, at least that's how I kind of see it, like Thrawn versus the Bendu, right, in Rebels. And I've always kind of been like, Thrawn takes this in stride. Like, there's a Force god in this not sea planet, you know, not ocean planet now. And he's just like, oh, shoot it, you know? Well, that might recontextualize by he has a small understanding of what it's like to have that type of power, but to lose it might be an interesting thing. So I'm willing to go down those roads.
That could be neat,
But my first initial thought was like, I don't want him to be one of these things. I want him to be Thrawn.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, and I think having that premonition idea, too, could lead towards his intelligence a little bit, too. Yeah. Like, maybe there's a pseudo element left there, and that's why he's so good at figuring things out, because he's kind of like, in the same way, looking at the future, figuring out what it could be.
I like that. Either a pseudo element or even just a hole where it used to be that he has to work really hard to fill.
Sure.
You know? Like he doesn't have that connection anymore, like, at all, but he knows what it used to be like, and he can almost, like, I'll come at that at a different angle with just pure logic and tactical ability, you know?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, when we're in that, and he's kind of leading Vader to the idea of, like, use this, tell us where to go, let's find the Grisk, like, home base, and stop this from happening. Because there's also, like, these elements where Vader is internally fighting Anakin Skywalker, right? Like, they keep bringing it up.
He calls him the Jedi. He never says him by name unless he's, like, saying Anakin Skywalker died. But when he's thinking of his own thoughts, he thinks of the Jedi, but not Anakin.
Yeah, so there's these thoughts of the Jedi and, like, the Chiss children who are, like, being slaves for their travel and stuff, too. And I think there's elements of that he's fighting with, being like, I want to help these children, but I need to help the Empire and make that the priority. But one thing I really liked in that, you were talking about Thrawn coming back and saving Anakin with, like, the
lightning gun.
the arc gun, right?
Yeah.
before we get to that chapter, he's doing that vision thing, and Thrawn's like words to him is like, "When have I ever failed you?"
Whenever.
You know, and it's like, you're right. For the Empire, what about Adalan? It's like, well, I'm not done with the rebels. I'm still going to take care of that. I've never failed the Empire, and that's how you can take it. But in the idea that Thrawn knows Anakin is Vader, then you cut back to being like, well, he just left him with a generator. He just took off. But he's not going to, right? Yeah. And I feel like Thrawn's thinking those things, and then Vader has to think those things too, you know? And I love the way that melds so well. And I was like, when he said that, and then we cut back to that, and I was like, he's coming back. He's not left yet. He will be here soon. And I was like, it's going to happen. I love that. I thought that was great.
No, I really respected that when Thrawn thinks he's right, he'll never say, I'm absolutely right. He'll say, I still have to experiment. I still have to get the evidence. But he'll have a thought. And he knows, like, I know you're Anakin Skywalker.
Sure,
but I'm not going to say it. I need everybody else to kind of get there first. And they never get there, but Thrawn just throws that little bit of, like, I know.
Such a good example of that, too, is they're traveling to Batuu, and they get, like, pulled out of hyperspace.
Yeah,
right?
the gravity well.
Yeah, and they're like, what happened here? And, like,
how can it be cloaked and be a gravity well at the same time?
And Thrawn like fails like 7 times, right? Looking for something that isn't there, right? And I feel like that's still the same idea. There's something hidden inside of this cloakness, right? And like that's kind of the Vader thing. I will keep trying, and eventually I will realize who's inside this suit. And I feel like that's the same kind of idea with that gravity well, because he tried it like
I
7.
I never thought of that. That's so good.
He tried it like 7, 8 times or whatever, right? And Vader's like, you get no more chances, right?
Yeah.
And then he's like, just shoot over there.
Yeah.
And he's like, I found it. It just took me a minute.
No, that's a really good point. That's what he's doing to Vader to find Anakin. And he doesn't know for certain until he sees him fly.
But he has words like, last time we were here on Batuu. And then Vader's like, I was never here.
What?
Yeah.
No, bro. No, I was never here.
Yeah. He like straightens up. They talk about him like standing straight up and talking and saying no. And it's all those are just little elements of him just being like, I'm testing.
I agree. There's one part that says Vader frowned. And I just imagine his whole helmet like, I know what they meant, but still. But yeah, no, I love that. And that really blew my mind a little bit, Aaron. Because when he does like in his mind, no, that's him, is when he sees Vader flying and and he recognizes Anakin's style of flight.
Yeah, when he's flying the TIE Defender.
Yeah. No, that was so cool because that's the best thing about Thrawn is he's able to make those connections by studying art, by studying strategy, studying how the psychology of a person works, and to connect Vader to Anakin, he sees it when Vader starts spinning. And it's a good trick.
That's a good trick. No, I love that too. I also liked when they were describing it, and it's like someone else would have screamed or whatever it was. But like, not Vader. It maybe caught him off guard a little bit how fast it was. Yeah. So I like that too.
There's one little part in that too that I love when he sits down to do the nav computer thing at the Star Destroyer, and he notices that the chair's already been adjusted for someone of his height, and he gets a little annoyed that like, Thrawn knew this was going to happen. I don't think that guy adjusted the chair before he got up because he was too scared.
Sure.
I really like that part, too.
That's funny. Yeah. I like that.
And Vader just gets a little annoyed, like, Thrawn. But, he's right.
It was so fun having the Vader-Thrawn, discussions and that kind of stuff, too. This did have maybe my favorite Vader moment in like, just Vader.
Ever?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. It was picturing. I started laughing. I was like, "This is great. I love it." But there's a point in this book where there's the Grisk. We talked about that. They're like this alien buggy race kind of thing, is how I think they describe them. Like they mentioned bugs at one point.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that was just the one projectile they had.
I kind of got like you saying Vong vibes from a little bit.
Really?
Like outside the known galaxy.
They were legends
insects.
too. Were they
legends.
Were they Heir of the Empire or were they something else?
They were New Jedi Order.
New Jedi Order.
So it wasn't Thrawn stuff.
Okay. I wasn't sure because, like, if it was, I could see Timothy trying to, like, reincorporate some of that if he did.
No, the Vong were, like, space orcs that aren't affected by the Force or whatever.
I've heard about them where, like, they had, like, more organic stuff, and, like, they had, like, their belt would be like a snake that could, like, turn into, like, a staff that could fight lightsabers and stuff.
It was pretty cool. Jason Solo learns how to use one.
Yeah, cool. that's neat. But no, there's a point when they're fighting, and Thrawn had been like, I'm going to give me the First Legion to accompany me down to the planet.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, you will stay here. You'll take care of this fight here, and I will go down to the planet. And I was like, sweet, because we'd been meeting, I forget his name, Kieran? What was there was like a lead stormtrooper.
The stormtrooper sergeant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to say it started with a K, but I forget, and chat will remind me of that. But he had been dealing with like Rook so many times through the story too, and I loved like their relationship kind of like occurring between him, like how this helmet get here, you know? And it's like it would have came from here, but he didn't get on the ship, and like they don't know what he's doing. Rook's just like messing with the stormtroopers on their plane or their Dark Hawk. But they go down there, they get down, and they're
Kimmond.
Yeah, that sounds right. Thank you so much, Nexus.
Thank you.
Kimmond. I knew it was a K. I don't know where I got Kieran. Kieran and Kimmond. I don't know. But anyway, they're down there. He's leading. They're fighting them. There's the electric guns that are being shot off.
Yeah.
And then they start talking about like the bugs and stuff too. And I love the description that they get from him. It's from his perspective of the stormtroopers. Like, and then we see the dark suit arise and come with the saber, and like they're just describing like this legendary fighter kind of thing, and what a sight it is to see like Lord Vader enter the battlefield, and he accompanies with his saber and starts coming in towards where all the bad guys are, and then they start shooting him with these bugs. And the way these bug things work is like every time they hit him, they're like encasing him in like stone and cement and stuff. And they talk about how previously in the book they did an attack like this as well, and it caught them all off guard. Yeah. And they're doing this, and like Kimmon's just looking, and it's like after the final bug hits, it's just a rock with like a lightsaber sticking out of it, and that's all that's there. And they have trapped Vader, and now we're at a loss. And how do we fight this and stuff? And it's like, but they didn't realize that he was an amazing tactician, and he would never be fooled by the same thing twice. And then real Lord Vader comes out, and he had just been manipulating his own second suit.
Yeah, they
walking around.
That he had the second suit the whole time.
I loved it. I was like, oh my God, he used the Force to bring his suit to life, to walk out there, to take this stone bug weapon thing, and then come out and just kill them all. And I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you were saying about the parallels between the timelines too, right? Because Anakin tried to use the Force to like puppet a guy, like Weekend at Bernie's, and he wasn't very good at it. But Vader can
years later.
He's learned,
Yeah.
No, that's a really good point.
So
that's a good moment.
I didn't think about it when it happened there, and I'm like, man, is he gonna break out of this rock with the Force or something? Like, what are they gonna do? How's he gonna get out of this? And when that happened, I'm like, oh my God, and I just picture Vader like behind a wall, just fucking do this here, and maybe do a Force,
like with like a marionette kind of like thing,
Okay. I love the visual of that, but also it was just so clever, and I'm like, yeah, multiple suits, yeah, okay, that makes sense. All right. They got me, and I love it.
I love the idea of him like practicing, like a year from now, like a year before, like one day I'll need to do this.
I might need to do this sometime.
I'm like, oh no, I look cool. I could turn that way.
Yeah, right. I got to make my suit walk like I would walk, so that no one thinks it's not me.
It's like he has his own action figure.
Yeah,
it's like he's Darth Helmet from Spaceballs. It's like, playing with his action figures.
But I also love too, like once you know that and you listen or read through that segment, that stormtrooper describing what he's seeing, they never actually refer to him as Lord Vader. They talk about the dark,
the cloak,
suit, they talk about this armor, and like they never refer to him as him. Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? They write around it so well to where it's descriptive. Yep. But I didn't think about it not being. I
didn't think about it.
And I was like, I just really enjoyed that part of it.
Mm-hmm. Surprising but obvious. Yeah. It's the best thing.
So yeah, that was one of my favorite Vader kind of moments and stuff too, because I thought it was a cleverer thing than just. I love Rogue One. Right, I love that hallway scene. It's so cool, but it's not like it's scary Vader, but it's not like something I wouldn't think of Vader doing. Like I could see him just tearing through a bunch of rebels and doing that. We played.
That's default Vader, yeah.
We played Force Unleashed, and you go through on Kashyyyk, and you're so strong, just tearing through things. Just like
walking around.
I expect that. Yeah. I don't expect. Oh, I've been playing a suit the whole time, right? And really, Vader's like standing around that corner, so that the weapon doesn't hurt him. That's nuts. So I like that a lot.
Yeah. I love like Luke Skywalker can project himself to be like a puppet on another world, but Vader's just like, I can do that too.
Yeah.
I don't need to play side.
I did think about that too when I was watching. I was like, man, he kind of Luke Skywalker that.
He did kind of Luke Skywalker that.
Like, that's kind of cool.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
When this book came out. Yeah.
So I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, there was a bunch of little things, like in the Clone Wars segment, there's a part where they're talking about how Anakin needs to wear armor.
Yeah.
And how, like, man, I just, Thrawn's right. Like, my robes are kind of made for, moving around and being agile. Like, I could never see myself in armor all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
because he's wearing that clone trooper armor and stuff. Yeah. No, it is funny to have those kind of moments too, where it's like the foreshadowing and the.
And hey, and this is gonna be real nerdy, but I was super hyped when they talked about Cortosis.
Were you?
Yeah.
When I heard, I'm like, ooh, Cortosis. And I'm like,
weave.
When have I ever had anything with Cortosis? I'm like, I can't think of a time. Like, I'm familiar with it from Legends, but in the current canon, I don't know of any Cortosis times. Like, this is cool. They're bringing Cortosis into this.
I know because I can't remember. It was probably during my Star Wars studying time last year, but I know a book in which it does appear. It's not this book.
Gotcha.
So I know it's been in the new canon.
Cool. Okay. But I don't think it hasn't been in any shows or anything yet. Like, we've had Beskar. And Beskar, that's cool.
Yeah.
But Cortosis is different, where, like, Beskar can, like, resist a lightsaber. Cortosis, like, will turn it off.
It dissipates energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It, like, feedbacks the lightsaber into itself, and it shorts for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I mean, Cortosis, like, if you played Knights of the Republic, like, you had Cortosis vibroblades with Cortosis weave in your armor. In Jedi Outcasts, one of my favorite Star Wars games that we talked about in this channel when we ranked all of the video games. Like, there's the Shadow Troopers in that, and they wear Cortosis armor. It's a thing that has saturated Star Wars for a long time, and I was really happy. I had no idea once they said the word, I was like,
oh, yeah. It made so much more sense. Like, that's what they're doing with this.
Yeah.
Okay. I do love, because earlier, way early in the book, like, Palpatine's like, I need to send Thrawn and Vader to go do this.
Yeah.
Back to the planet where they foiled my plans before.
Yeah.
Like, he mentioned something along those lines. I'm like, foiled his plans before? What was he doing before, you know? And I'm like, man, they were doing Cortosis battle droids, which would have been a pain. But then they were also making Cortosis clone trooper armor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that would have been like what Jedi would have stood a chance then? Like, there's been a few Jedi that have escaped or survived, and we've had whether it's Canon Jarrus who got away.
Let's say there's 100.
Or sure, yeah, right. But how many more would have been lost because of having Cortosis woven armor?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's crazy.
It's crazy. Yoda probably wouldn't be able to do what he did.
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
No, that was really cool. It was cool to get, like, little Count Dooku things in there. The Sereno
Duke.
Yeah. He was just like a classic Clone Wars bad guy. Like, I don't know about you, but when I was listening to this, I didn't see live action anything.
Okay.
I saw whenever it
animated
was this stuff, it was the Clone Wars.
This stuff it was Rebels and Clone Wars, yeah.
Like, I saw it.
When it was Clone Wars and, like, Padme's talking to the Duke guy there or whatever, and, like, she's trying to, like, not let R2 get found because they're going to try to sabotage the whole place, which Anakin messes up all that. I think he had I think Thrawn had the right idea.
Yeah.
But Anakin didn't go with it,
Nope.
So
Anakin makes a big mistake in this book.
Yeah, I know. It really messed up Batuu, but
no, he does.
But no, I love whenever that's going on, and she's like, "Oh no, he's gonna turn," so she just shoots him. And he's like, "You shot me!
You shot me!" No, that was funny. I thought it was really funny when the Cortosis B2s, when they, like, get destroyed, they T-pose.
Yeah,
that was really funny too. But no, yeah, I just immediately put myself into like, this is what Clone Wars looks like. This is what Rebels look like. Whenever Scarus showed up, the Imperial pilot, like, that's the same Imperial pilot that we've seen in Rebels. The mustache, the ace, that guy. Like, oh, he's there too. That's cool. He just keeps bringing in these characters from what I already love.
Yeah. Which I wasn't sure if that's what we would get. I wasn't expecting it to be tied in with Rebels. I also didn't know when this released comparison.
Yeah.
Because I knew that Rebels had happened, and then they made a new trilogy of books, but I wasn't sure what the involvement between the two would be and how connected they'd be or anything.
Sure.
Which also I'm curious on the next book too of, like,
trickle down is usually what
like
it does.
Well, I have one more season of Rebels, and I know where Thrawn is in that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, where will this book exactly fit in? So I'm curious to see that part.
Yeah,
of it too,
me too.
Like, I know kind of where he should be, and I'm quite certain it takes place before he gets taken away by Purgils.
And then Ezra, they go to the unknown regions, right?
Yeah. So
they don't know what happens.
One, I'm excited to see what they do with Ahsoka and Thrawn and all that kind of stuff, especially with a lot of this and with the Chiss and seeing more Chiss here and knowing what I mean. The whole Chiss Ascendancy could be a threat to the galaxy at some point, potentially. Like, you could go that way where they're a danger to the galaxy, or it could be like they could become allies or something too. But it really depends.
We've only gotten little tiny seeds of like, well, apparently there's like maybe like a civil war going to be starting with the in the Chiss. Like, some of them are actually for stuff that Thrawn's not for. So like maybe that's where we're going to be going into it. I mean, we still have Eli Vanto.
Did you miss? I missed him in this book. I felt like I'm like, man, I wish I had more Eli in this.
The last book put an Eli Vanto sized hole in my heart that this book did not fill.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'd really like Thrawn's second command on Chimera.
Pharaoh.
Yeah. I really like her, but I was missing me some Eli.
Yeah, I thought she was fine. I enjoyed the little bit of Rook that we got in there. I also kind of liked having that First Legion, like stormtrooper leader guy. Just having those characters in there. I'm like, well, this is cool, and I like seeing these little elements. I also thought it was interesting that Vader has the First Legion, whereas Anakin had the 5-0 first.
Yeah, no, I was looking
cool.
up some stuff about the book, and like there was two things that I knew Zahn wanted to do, and he wasn't allowed. He wanted to have it be Ahsoka, not Padme. And they couldn't do that. And then he wanted it to be the 501st, and they couldn't do that. So he made the First Legion.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because the 501st is still supposed to be technically Vader's fist. At least I've heard it that way before. But
I mean, I guess the idea is like, at what point does it change, right? Where he probably has the 501st for a while, and then you get rid of the clone troopers, and you have stormtroopers instead. And maybe then you change it because you got to get rid of the old clone ways and stuff too. Also, maybe they had ideas of what they want to do with Bad Batch and that kind of stuff. So they were like, you know what? No 501st. You got to do something else.
I don't know.
So, but no, I liked having Rook. There's not as much backstory. He's kind of just there.
He's the Noguri. He's like it's
kind of
left over from the old Thrawn.
It's kind of like what he is in Rebels. He's just kind of he shows up, kicks butt, goes invisible.
Right.
They did talk about the. I think they implied the thingy is from like Chiss technology, his invisibility thing.
Because not only does he have that, but maybe that ship that escaped at the end was cloaked the whole time. So they have some type of like hardcore cloaking technology.
Yeah.
Though interestingly enough, they don't have some of the stuff that we take for granted in our part of the galaxy, you know?
Which is interesting.
And that's how they talked about the Grisk, how they would like take whatever a certain species has and make it their own.
Yeah.
You know, which is... you see that in Star Wars a lot. Like Moff Gideon kind of became that a little bit, right? In The Mandalorian.
Yeah,
like he just takes whatever is best and uses that.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the Force. I'm going to take Beskar.
Force, Beskar, become a new kind of better version of everything.
So it's like that, but a whole other species is out there in the unknown lands.
It's like a group of scavengers that are like just living and taking
what
they can.
You know, again, it's why Timothy Zahn is so good, but just throwing in the detail that Thrawn notices that the Grisk will always attack the thing that is the most immediate threat. Right?
Oh, yeah. When they had the TIE fighters and they deployed all of them.
Yeah,
I thought that was
he had
cool.
an idea, and then it ended up working, and then he uses that to prove to Vader that, like, hey, I said my Chiss name, so the Grisk are going to hear that. I didn't say the Empire. I said Mithrandu, you know? So I introduced myself with my Chiss name, so they think the immediate threat is they're going to go after the Ascendancy, not the Empire. And I have now bought us time to deal with this threat. And I'm like, you can do both, Vader.
Yeah.
You know?
Can we do both?
Yeah, can we do both? Why not both?
Part of that leads me to think about, like, when you have Thrawn treason coming up, too. I'm curious to see, like, will he be treasonous towards the Empire?
Yeah.
Or treasonous towards the Chiss? You know? And, I mean, we know where he ends up. So, like, I assume one way, but maybe not. So I'm really curious to see what they do with a lot of that.
I just... we started reading these books because we were like, look, we want to get more into what the canon, and these are canon books. They're sold to us as like, hey, this is all real. So I understand. Don't get me wrong. I understand when people get mad when stuff contradicts each other or it's not utilized in another part of the, the publishing, kingdom of Lucasfilm. And I had to deal with that back when the Clone Wars was coming out because it was retconning and changing my Republic comics, and I'm like, no. When I bought these, it said this is the
this is a story.
So yeah, like in preparing for Ahsoka, I have given myself more anxiety that they're not going to follow through on the Thrawn that I know from these books. Not necessarily the Rebels Thrawn, because the Rebels Thrawn, I have now that I see this Thrawn, I have to man, it's really weird whenever he fired on civilians at the end of Rebels. but he was also extremely desperate. And we know that Thrawn is ruthless, and he wants to win overall. So, like, it kind of matched, like, I never had a problem with it watching just Rebels, but here I have to, like, think about it more, you know? And am I going to now have a stumbling block when Ahsoka comes out, and they're just like, Dave Filoni's like, didn't really think about that stuff.
Sure.
I hope that there's a little bit there.
Where do we go from these stories into that, and does it gel well, or do we feel like does the character feel too different? Like there's one way of looking at it where it's like, well, he is pushing hard for the Empire, and he needs to prove his loyalty there to ultimately help his Chiss side of things. Yeah. But not knowing what happens in this next book and stuff too could adjust a lot of that too, where maybe that's not necessarily the way that we need to think about it. You know? But I could find like. These books have made me, like I said before, like Thrawn in such a different way, rather than just being like, it's a cool villain, I really like it, to a part where I'm like, kind of feel sympathetic for him a little bit more, Like his growing in through the Empire time frame in the last book is very interesting, and it's a big struggle for him. Yeah. Though he succeeds very well in doing it, but it's not just like he's accepted. Yeah. He is fighting against all odds and succeeding, and I love seeing that. It's just it's also for the Empire, and I hate the Empire. I'd rather see him succeed in that for the rebellion. Yeah,
it is weird. Like there's a couple of times where I'm like, yay, stormtroopers, like yay, Rook, and then maybe come Ahsoka, and after we see everything that season has to offer, will I be like, yay, Thrawn?
Yeah, I don't know. And like,
now,
does it?
I say that being like, it gives me a little bit of like pause or anxiety, like, oh man, don't make me love this version and then don't give me that version. But the older I get, the easier that is for me to reconcile. Like, we talk about this on the podcast all the time, but Star Wars is a living mythology. You pull this thread, this one goes, and sometimes the threads it's connected to move a little bit too. It's fine. Sure. It doesn't need to be perfect. Well, it just needs to say something.
And with not knowing the next book too, like maybe he does turn more on the Chiss and join the Empire more, Maybe that's the route he goes. Maybe he becomes a little bit more evil.
Loses that faith
and loses
the Chiss Ascendancy.
Maybe. I mean, that could be a possibility. I'm really curious because there's also, and now that I understand a little bit better why, like, there's the other trilogy, which I know has a word in it where I'm like, it must be about this more, So I'm really curious on what that's going to be, which we'll get to that at some point too with the other trilogy. But so far, it's been so fun going through and learning more about Thrawn and seeing the interactions with Skywalker and stuff. Yeah. It's just, I've really enjoyed that.
I agree, man. It was just so much fun to read or to listen to Mark Thompson read it to me.
Yeah.
No. I do wish that he went a little more Matt Lanter than Hayden Christensen in his Anakin voice.
Sure.
Sometimes his Anakin voice kind of high up in here and a little more whiny than, a little more down here, Anakin in the Clone Wars. What? He's going to blow up the ship.
He's going to blow up the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you. It was kind of, I don't remember if he's who read Brotherhood or not, but whoever did that one,
yeah.
I transitioned through that one where it was like Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, Anakin, transitioning into Clone Wars Anakin. And for me, it was such a fun experience, like shifting what I was hearing as it went through. And I don't know if he did that on purpose. It would be great. If it was just in my head, at least I had that.
Good for you.
at least I had that. So I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if we mentioned it too much, but I did enjoy that there was a Skywalker connection that Thrawn had already because of the Chiss Force sensitives. Like they talk about the Chiss Force sensitives, but the word they use translates
the two words they use, but
translates into Skywalker, which I think is really cool given the idea that they're doing premonition for space travel, right?
Yeah.
So they are walking through the skies above, right? Like that's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
But then you relate it to like, my first Jedi I met was Skywalker.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's really cool. There's like that connection already. And I feel like
if Thrawn was a Skywalker, then both of those dudes used to be Skywalkers.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
It's kind of neat.
I don't know if I'm into it or not.
We'll see. I also love like they mention that too, and the way he brings that up is like he's doing it to look for a reaction from Vader too. Yeah. Like it's another one of those clues. Like how will he react to when I say Skywalker? And I it's so fun to watch Thrawn unravel like a mystery.
It's slightly
that I already know. Yeah. So I'm like, how's he gonna do it?
And it slightly made me think too, like, okay, where the hell does Shmi come from? How'd she get that name? Like, did an ancestor of hers walk around in the unknown regions and pick up a surname there? I don't know.
In the idea that you have like smiths, and that's because their old families used to be blacksmiths.
Yeah.
So they called them smiths.
Yeah.
Like
so you pick up a trade,
yeah,
like goldsmith.
Yeah,
you know,
it came from like jobs and stuff that they had, and so like why?
So maybe like that name comes from I don't know if it wouldn't go that far or not, because Skywalker, I don't think even Timothy Zahn wants to be like, oh yeah, I made up a reason why that name's there, because so many people are like, no, you don't need a reason, that's his name.
Sure.
But I've also heard the theory of like, oh yeah, Skywalker is like, it's like
Smith.
It's like Smith in our world. Like everybody's name's Skywalker. That's why they didn't bother to change his name. But I haven't met any other Skywalkers.
No, we
haven't. In fact,
yet.
The Skywalker saga is over. So I don't know how much that theory holds water.
It's like Jones and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, just a common name that you have. So.
There's what was it? There was a comic book, I think, that I read, Republic comic book, long time ago, not canon anymore, but in that there was a Jedi named John Antilles.
Okay.
And he had actually had a different name, but in his walk with the Force, he lost his identity. He's like, it's vain to have that. So his alias is John Antilles, but it's supposed to be John, which is just a regular name, and Antilles, which is supposed to be very common. So it's like saying that's my Jane Doe or my John Doe, but he's my John Antilles. And I always thought that was an interesting concept, but I don't know if Skywalker fits the same mold or not.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed a lot of that. I enjoyed a lot of this more Chiss information that we got. What did you think about the side characters of it? Like, we had the Stormtrooper, we had Rook, we had Pharaoh.
Pharaoh, yep. Loved Pharaoh. It took me a little bit to get through, like, the riverboat people.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think they were good, too, but I just felt like it was a little extra. There was a couple times where I'm like, I'll get through this.
Sure.
Not that I didn't think it was interesting or anything, but that's the only time in the book that I was kind of like, I really want to get back to this part.
Sure.
That wasn't bad at all.
Like a lot of the Padme stuff, like I didn't like dislike, but I also just really wanted to get back to like Anakin and Thrawn.
There were a couple times where I had to re-listen to certain segments because I had trouble, like, so when they're on Batuu or they're dealing with these smugglers or these people that are fighting them in the cantina or these people that they're ambushing and trying to follow, I was like, wait, which ones are these guys again? I had to kind of like go back.
Are these the same guys that attacked him here that are attacking him here?
Yeah. So there's a couple times there where it kind of not lost me, but I had to work harder than I did for some other parts of the book.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, probably Pharaoh might be one of my favorites. Again, missing Eli, but I really liked Pharaoh in the way that she constantly is like, "Oh my God, Vader's gonna kill us! Why is he doing it like this?"
I do like the. There's a time whenever it's like from her point of view, and Vader comes in and does something, and she starts like thinking about him and the things he's doing, and if they're right or wrong or whatever, and then she's like, "Oh no, I need to stop that." It says like she slaps herself mentally to try to stop thinking about that because there's rumors that he can read their thoughts, and she doesn't want him to read the thoughts that she's having against him.
Yeah.
And it freaks her out.
No, I like that.
And I was like, man, that's an interesting perspective to have internally for a character who's around Darth Vader, because you would figure, we see Empire Strikes Back. How many people does he like choke in that?
It's a lot.
Like he chokes
like so much to the point that like the joke at the end of that movie is that he doesn't kill somebody because he's too lost in thought.
Right? So like, how many times are they thinking like, oh my God, is he thinking about what I'm thinking about? How can I not mess up? Because if I mess up, he'll kill me. And then they come back into Return of the Jedi and like, the Emperor's not as forgiving as I am. It's like, you've killed everyone who's failed you. So it definitely is interesting to have those thoughts, but not just have the thoughts of fear, but also have the grand thoughts of like the stormtroopers seeing him enter the battlefield and how amazing it is to have that power join you to fight on your side and stuff. And I was like, that's just really cool to have.
It's not absolutely terrifying like it usually is.
Yeah, right? It's on the opposite side. Like he is the hero on your side showing up to fight versus like Rogue One where you're like, oh God, it's him.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, it takes a master author to make Darth Vader the ultimate movie villain into your book's protagonist in a way, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know Thrawn is more, but
he's there. He's like, did you get the package, And it's like, bring them aboard. And it's like, they're children. He's wanting to save these children. He didn't say to kill them or anything. He said, get them, bring them up. He doesn't seem surprised. So it's just, it's like got a hero aspect from him, but also he's very scary. And he also is like, well, we're not going to go save more kids because that's not the Empire's thing. That's the Chiss. Let the Chiss deal with that.
Now, it's implied, or is it outright spoken, I can't remember, that the disturbance Palpatine felt was the fear of those Force-sensitive children?
I believe
they say that, right?
Because he says he feels a great Force power, and then they get close to it, and then it's gone, right? And they lose it there. And I'm pretty sure it's those kids that he senses there that just also happens to be where Thrawn and Anakin went and did stuff previously as well. So it's like they have to go to this and feel what this Force sensitivity is that it's interesting, too, because he feels it from so far away, and Vader doesn't sense it until he's much, much closer. And I thought that was an interesting aspect of, like, maybe, like, their power scaling, or maybe not even power scaling, but, like, we've talked about how different Jedi have different strengths and weaknesses, right? Like, Obi-Wan can't do what, like, Cal and Quinlan does.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think that might be one of either Palpatine's full strength or just, like, he is just much more tuned to that, because also Vader has lost, like, almost his whole body. You know, so... I just thought it was interesting, like, that Palpatine would feel that. On top of that, the other thing that's really interesting, I thought, was I'm trying to remember the exact wordings of it, but Vader and Thrawn are talking, and Vader's reprimanding him for, like, the Chiss and helping this and all that. And it's like, how would the Emperor feel about this? It's like, well, he's fine with it. It's like, he's fine. You've talked about this? It's like, no, but I'm sure he knows.
I know the dude.
You know Thrawn has no doubt that what's going on. Palpatine already knows what's going to happen or what's going on. And it's either A, he's testing him, or B, he trusts him enough to do it. And I love that Thrawn already. And, I mean, I guess it's been a little bit more time because this time has passed in this book time passed a lot in the last book. It did. There was a lot of time there. But Thrawn just, like, understands the Emperor enough to be like, I have no doubt he knows what's going on. Yeah. And if he had a problem with it, I'd be already dead. And, you know?
No, I agree. And I also love that, like, it doesn't, you can't blame Thrawn for not knowing this, but, like, he has no idea that Palpatine used the Clone Wars, like, he was on both sides, but Vader does. And I like that that's one of the things that Thrawn didn't see. He's like, oh, interesting that this was Dooku's plan. I wonder what he really... But Vader's like, I know. I'm not telling. Smarty pants. You know, he gets one moment in the whole book where he's like, I know, you don't.
I know something you don't.
But he doesn't come out and say it.
Well, even Thrawn back during the Clone Wars had it was a discussion about the clone troopers, right? Like that's not what you're referring to, right? You're referring like there's a part in the book after they figure out the Cortosis and the clones, and they're like they were gonna come in and infiltrate the Coruscant as troopers and maybe attack Palpatine or do something like that. And then Thrawn's like, I would think about that again because it seems really odd. Like a small force like that, you know, or over time you might get caught. Like, something doesn't quite add up in this idea. And I don't know. Do you think that was Thrawn's idea to make them waste resources that would fail better? Or was Anakin's idea of like, we should probably destroy all of this? Was that one better? Like, what do you think the outcome would have been? Because the droid idea is pretty good, right? They shoot a whole bunch, it, like, short-circuits them, and then they would have blown up.
And it would pass all of the testing, but not until an actual battlefield thing would it fail,
But having that mine and stuff there, I don't know that would have affected the clone trooper armor.
Sure.
You know? So, I like the idea of wasting resources, but also what Anakin did destroyed a whole lot, but now they can't make the Cortosis clone trooper armor, which may have killed even more Jedi.
True. Yeah. I want to say that, I mean, at least when I was reading, I was like, no, man, you got to get rid of this stuff. But I was finding myself being like, well, it's Thrawn said it, though. So
he's probably right.
I mean, he knows more than I do.
Sure. So I don't know. But him, like, blowing that up and being like, no way, it wouldn't have done that. And it like, absorbs it and sends it the other direction.
Into the Earth's core.
Sends, like, lava everywhere and stuff.
Like, that's a big oops.
Yeah.
Like that poor guy's like, oh, so you destroyed, you know, this our precious farmland for years and years to come. Just drop me off Batuu. Everybody's gonna hate me.
Yeah, right. Like, thank goodness I evacuated the area.
I hear there's an opening for a bartender. Batuu.
So but yeah, I was just curious on that too because I was like, oh man, he should have listened to Thrawn, and I was like, well, maybe not. Yeah. Because like if they would have had Cortosis, like they would have been mining it. And I don't think they would have sabotaged maybe as much of the armor or something, you know? It sounded more like the battle droids would be sabotaged.
Yeah. And, I mean, something like on Coruscant, like, how often does a clone trooper get shot? Like, they never would have known that it was different armor until it went down, right?
Yeah, far later.
So it looks exactly the same.
But, yeah, I don't know. It was it's It's definitely an interesting story. I definitely enjoyed it, and I think like this coupled with the last book, just having that Thrawn legacy being built up, has been a lot of fun.
I'm so looking forward to going into the third one and kind of like finishing this first trilogy before we get into Ahsoka. I just was looking through my notes to make sure there wasn't anything I had that I didn't want to cover here. Oh, this was so now that we learned about the Cortosis and we know that like there's little things like the Chiss have the cloaking device and stuff. Like, was it implied that Thrawn's uniform was kind of blaster proof? Like in the beginning, like he got shot, but he's like, oh my uniform is not that bad. Like he gets like shot, but he's also kind of fine. And they imply that there's like, markings and stuff on his uniform as if it's been shot. And I was just going like, I wonder if like Chiss have any like, obviously they have technology that he's not going to tell Vader about or the Empire about. But I wondered if like,
is there a chance it's Cortosis?
I don't know.
It could
maybe not Cortosis, but some other thing. But there was a part of me that's like, in thinking about that again, I wonder if there's anything there. I also thought like they would mention Thrawn's pilot but never say anything. And there's one part, I can't remember what exactly was said, but I was like thinking about that again and being like, I wonder if Thrawn's pilot is like really young and that's why he's not bringing them down into like more of the danger parts. Like,
sure.
What if it's a Skywalker?
Well, because they had a thing where it's like the kids travel, the kids pilot, the kids do that kind of thing.
And like, well, does that mean that Thrawn's pilot is a young kid, which is why he never like ordered them to get like into the fray?
Sure. I mean, if he had a connection with them, it could relate more too of like why he wants to save all these children and everything too. Maybe I don't know. I don't know how the Chiss feel about them, right?
Sure.
I don't know if they look at them as like tools or if they look at them as like people as well. Because like the ones we saw were being held by the Grisk, and they are definitely treating them more like slave tools, right? So do the Chiss treat them differently, or do you have an aspect of like?
Well, because they had that sacrifice thing that they were talking about. Like once they're like done, they must make the sacrifice. I don't know what that meant. And someone in chat does say, and it's not implied, they specifically state that his uniform is blaster resistant. So maybe there's like more than we're not seeing. I don't know, but
I wonder if all Chiss uniforms are blaster resistant, or if like it could be interesting if his was specifically because he also took some Cortosis from that event on Batuu.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it would be interesting if he has like a personal connection to maybe like the Chiss, whether it's him or it's like a sister or something like that, to where that force sensitivity aspect that he's kind of talking about, like maybe when he's looking off in the distance, it's either because he used to have it or because like he had a sister that used to have it or something like that. And then if you have like,
or he just doesn't agree with what they do with those kids.
Well, yeah, like if you have a family member that did that and there is like a sacrifice element or something, there's something that dwells there and he feels terrible for these kids, these Chiss, which then also could kind of feed with the idea of like how Chiss operate versus how others Chiss believe they should operate, and leading into Civil War ideas too. And I don't know.
I also want to just shout out to the people that are in the chat that are listening to us talk about a book that came out that they read 4 years ago, and they probably have a lot of these answers and are not spoiling it. So thank you guys so much.
Sure. Yeah.
There's just a lot of like, oh, the next book's good.
No, that could be. I'm really excited for the next book. I did see someone say like the next one is their favorite of the trilogy, which is good because I've enjoyed both of these a lot.
Yeah.
So if the next one is like, if it's like even the best of the trilogy, which I mean, typically the third of trilogies is my favorite. Return of the Jedi is usually my favorite. Revenge of the Sith is my favorite. I like Last Crusade best out of the Indiana Jones movies.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
Return of the King. Earlier today, you said it was the worst one.
I don't know.
No, you were just joking with me.
Yeah, I was. It was because you were talking about like,
I won 11 Academy Awards, Aaron.
No, that was more of just. I think I like Return of the King better than Fellowship. Maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to think of the order for those, but that's a different podcast, different topic.
It's a different podcast and it's a different format because it's all adapting one book, not 3 separate books. So it's hard to,
Yeah.
But Two Towers is pretty good.
No, yeah. I don't know. It's hard to pick which one's my least favorite.
So let's just start a Tolkien podcast and talk all about it.
Well, speaking of chat, I don't know if you have anything else listed that you want to
No,
make sure
we covered
mention,
everything that I wanted to cover.
But if chat has questions or thoughts too about Thrawn especially, we can cover those first. And I do want to go into other conversations that we
general
need to get
questions,
into
get those in
as well. So,
all right, let's see.
My name is Matt. Hey guys, love listening to these book reviews. Would you want to see these 3 books adapted into animated films? I mean, I pictured this one especially as animation while listening to it.
Yeah.
Just because I was like, it feels like Clone Wars. It feels like Rebels.
Yeah.
And it's 2 of my favorite Star Wars things, is both of those. I mean, I like a lot of Star Wars, live action or cartoon.
Sure.
But just those I have so much time invested to because there's so many more episodes of all those.
I mean, so much. I mean, Star Wars is so visual, even in its book form. But I would honestly, my perfect marriage of the 2 would be do an audiobook, and I love Mark Thompson, but anytime a character speaks, just get their actor from the Clone Wars or Rebels to do it.
Sure. There's
like, how cool would it be if it was Matt Lanter and Catherine Tabor,
right,
doing Anakin and Padme, you know?
I mean, that would be cool. There is so like Doctor Who does their audio dramas, and when they do those, they'll sometimes get like, here's the actor for this Doctor, here's the actor for River Song, here's the actor for, and they'll have them voicing their character.
I mean, they did that for Star Wars when it came out, right? Like, they had the radio dramas.
Yeah. So like, it could be really cool to have those elements there and be able to make audio dramas. Sure. So kind of like the Dooku one, right? Where like that one was made to be not necessarily a book. Like, you get the voice actors for, you know, Dooku, or maybe if you can get Liam Neeson, or if you can get, you know, Steven Stanton to do like an Obi-Wan, if you know, like, depending on who you need in the story, grabbing like animated voice actors or movie voices and stuff, and doing that would be really cool. But,
I suppose like the Ahsoka book did that, right?
I mean, the Ahsoka book was read by Ashley.
So, and then I know Sam did a Maul thing at one point.
Yeah, there's other people that are in it as well.
Okay.
But that is the main thing is like, it sounds like Ahsoka because Ahsoka's reading it.
I get, maybe it's just because Zahn is so good at what he does, Timothy. Like, I never felt like, man, what a shame that I'm not seeing this versus experiencing his words, you know?
Sure.
So I could take it or leave it. If they did it, would I watch it? 100%.
Yeah. Especially if they have like Mickelson doing Thrawn. I'm like, oh yeah, let's do this.
Dude, I am so jazzed for when he gets to show up in Ahsoka.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what that's going to be like, and I'm very curious, especially with these books and seeing like what they do with that character, like how much of his past is actually going to influence where he's been, what he's been doing. Like, is that why we haven't seen him? Because he went so far out that he went back to the Chiss Ascendancy. Is that what he's been doing? Has he been somewhere else? Yeah, like, I don't know. So I'm very curious to see what they've done with that, and with having all this information from these books. I hope it builds on it, and I feel like, Dave and Favreau have done a pretty good job of taking stuff from like legends and lore and stuff and trying to bring it into like Mandalorian and stuff.
Yeah.
And I hope they just kind of keep doing that and like being like, okay, what canon do we have so far for Thrawn?
Sure. What
can we use of that? Let's not trample over it, but let's build upon it.
I mean, when we were there at Celebration, I mean, Dave came out and said like how important it was, you know, how much like significance that he felt when he brought Thrawn in, and then now that he's bringing him into live action, how he consulted with Timothy Zahn. Like, that's there. I just don't know how much there it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, how much is the consulting,
and
right?
At the end of the day, I would rather a storyteller have more freedom than not. Like, I don't go crazy, but I will be able to reconcile if certain things don't work sometimes, you know?
Sure.
Like, I do that with Star Wars all the time, and I do that with everything we do. Like, sometimes there's stuff that just doesn't work, but it was needed for that version of the story, you know?
I understand. Let's see. Jayheim, we'll take another one. From both books so far, do you have a favorite Thrawn moment?
Ooh, man.
I mean, I love all the mystery stuff he's solving. I'm trying to think what my favorite moment would be. Right now, I'm really thinking about the newest book that we've read now, and I love the things he says. I think that was my favorite thing in this book, was him talking to Vader, and I'm like, he's trying to figure out if that suit is filled with Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, the I know moment's probably my favorite.
There's the I know. There's the when have I ever failed you? There's little things like that where I'm just like, he knows, and he's trying to tell Vader, hey, I know who you are. Okay, you listen. Yeah. But
Like, why are you poking that bear?
Yeah, right? I know who you are, and I want to work with you. We worked well before. Let's work well together again. So I do really like that.
And he's almost sad that Anakin's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know. I love some of the littler moments, too, where it's like Vader's upset because Thrawn has spent the last 2 hours doing this thing over and over and over to fail. And then he's like, all right, shoot there. And then they shoot there, and there's something there, and then they go get it, Yeah. And I love those kind of things where you're like, Thrawn doesn't know what he's doing, but I believe Thrawn knows what he's doing. And, like, those kind of moments are some of my favorite that they have.
Sure. Yeah. We'll have to do, like, a top Thrawn moments at some point, because there's so many great moments in Rebels and stuff.
Well, we need to finish the next trilogy, too, and pull from that, maybe.
You're right, yeah.
And then isn't there like a Thrawn comic series or something too?
Is there?
I feel like there's. I think there's a Thrawn book series. Maybe chat will know too. But I feel like there was a Thrawn comic series as well.
Okay.
But I don't know if that takes place like during these books or before the books or how it. I mean, I don't think it takes place after Rebels. Mm-hmm. So it must take place somewhere before that. But
gotcha. Okay.
But I don't know. It may also be Legends, maybe.
Maybe.
So. See if there's more Thrawn
Shellen
stuff.
says, what did you think of the different portrayal of Thrawn's character between Legends, Canon, and Rebels? We talked about it a little bit, but...
You would know the Legends side maybe more, because I don't know necessarily how he was portrayed in Heir to the Empire as well.
I feel like in the Canon books, he is a little more... what's the right word? Not heroic, but he's not just a Nazi screw-up.
Okay.
Like a lot of the Empire is...
yeah, for sure.
I mean, in Heir of the Empire, he was imperial, the best of the Empire, but still a villain, a force that Luke Skywalker and our friends have to fight against,
Sure.
And I know that that's what we're going to get in Ahsoka, right? I mean, they have Rosario Dawson say, like, he is the heir to the Empire for a reason. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm also perfectly happy with characters flowing through the lens of different artists to not always be carbon copies of each other. What does Timothy Zahn have to say about Thrawn?
Sure.
What does Dave Filoni have to say about Thrawn? Those don't have to. You don't have to pick. It could be both.
It could be both.
It could be
both. No, I mean, I love Thrawn because he's like. Now for me, I feel like he is Tarkin, but not where he just feels like
without the ego,
super ego evil.
Yeah.
Right. Like Thrawn feels like a capable leader, but he's also very overconfident. Right, and he's willing to kill whoever, do whatever. Like he has no qualms about any of that. Now Thrawn doesn't quite feel that way. Like he will let people escape, and he will do all this, which was also, man, I forgot about this until just now. There's a time, and I thought it was interesting too, talking about Thrawn and talking about Tarkin, where there is an argument/discussion they have off book at some point, and the lead stormtrooper guy and Rook foil a Grisk escape.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And Thrawn's like, I told you we should have told people about this. And he's like, no, we couldn't have. It needed to seem real for them to escape so they could follow them and stuff. And I was like, man, that's just like A New Hope, right? Like all these stormtroopers chasing after Han Solo, trying to get him, like, catch that guy, And Vader's like, yes, please escape, but don't tell anyone, So he's just risking all his men. So many people were dying for this. And I was like, that's a Vader move, but it wasn't a Thrawn move. And that's the difference. Tarkin and Vader, I think, are both okay with that and risking their soldiers, whereas Thrawn's more like he's going to try to save all of his men. And there's like a respect, I think, that he has with his men that a lot of maybe commanders don't have.
I agree, and that part of him I don't see in Rebels,
Sure, I get what you mean.
I'm not saying it's not there.
Yeah.
It's just not featured.
I feel like you have some kind of loyalty from Rook, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
That is there, but you don't quite get it from all the rest of them. But I mean, I don't know. The thing you really get out of that is like you feel like he is definitely competent in Rebels. And
100%.
So many other Imperial officers are just fools.
Yeah,
right?
dude.
Those two guys in like the first opening, like the first episode, like trying to get the fruit and stuff, and then they get killed later on and stuff.
Admiral Constantine,
Admiral Constantine.
We see them fumble so much stuff,
but Thrawn often lets people go, and he'll just watch. But it's usually the other people's fault and the other people's reasons as to why they're getting out and escaping. And
that pairs well with with Eli and with Pharaoh. Like he also, if you have like if you have the will to learn and to try to improve yourself, he will do that for you. He will be the kind of leader that like. Yeah, I love that part with Pharaoh. He's like, there it is. And Pharaoh's like, what? I didn't see anything. He's like, 2 things. Did you notice them? And she goes, no. And he's like, you did. He just waiting for her to catch up with them.
What were they?
But like he's making her better.
Yeah.
He made Eli better. And like Vader doesn't do that.
No, Vader doesn't.
He leaves you dead and hopes the better person comes along.
I wish I would have read these books before rewatching through Rebels with the kids. Yeah. And then I could have like seen if there was contextualization that's different to me after reading the books, because we have Price in the last book, the first one, and he's very patient with her. I feel like through Rebels, even though she flubs a lot,
hard,
but he gives her, I think, a lot of chances and talks about.
she blows up like
at the end.
Yeah, she blows up everything, and he's like,
"You ruined my TIE Defender program.
What the hell? You ruined it." And then space whales.
Yeah, right. Which I don't know how you account. He always is foiled by like something that like I couldn't account for. Weird mushroom antlered force creature. Right?
I mean, the Bendu said you will be wrapped up in the arms of
But he couldn't account for like big old tentacle space whales coming and getting them.
Yeah.
So, but as far as like how they're connected between this book and Rebels, like. I want to rewatch Rebels, but for me, I feel like it feels like it's still Thrawn.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's like, man, they've ruined the character, or like this guy's so different. I just feel like we're seeing his growth, and possibly, and especially going to the next book, maybe we're seeing him really embrace the Empire. Maybe that's why we get a kind of a different, more ruthless Thrawn. Perhaps.
I mean, Yoda in the original trilogy and Yoda in the prequels. I mean, we like to be like, oh, there's good old Yoda, but like in terms of like his actual mindset, what he does, how he feels, how he has people around him react, he's very different. When the prequels were coming out, there was a lot of stuff like that where people were like, this doesn't match the original trilogy. And I kind of feel the same way when we're looking at like the comic novels, the TV shows, and then what's going to be coming. It's like those are just growing pains, and 20 years from now, no one's ever going to even think about it.
And I think like we can see we can have a character change, but I also want to feel like I understand why they're different. So as long as we get that, if they don't feel like they're super consistent with each other, I want to be able to understand why, especially going into Ahsoka, like seeing a live action version, because now we're going to have a book form, a cartoon form, and now a live action form, and I really want to get to where I feel like it's all one person, and not like, well, they just feel like they're different because they were written by different people or whatever. So hopefully it's done well, and I enjoy all that. But so far, with not having Heir to the Empire, I still feel like these are all the same Thrawn so far.
I agree.
So.
Yep. Just different timelines, legends, and canon.
Yeah. Let's see. Trying to read through there, a lot of questions here.
Ray has an interesting one. What has been the difference you've enjoyed the most about absorbing Star Wars content in literature basis versus a visual medium?
I mean, the visual medium, in the literature basis when I'm not reading as much either because I've been listening to it. It's been nice to be able to. Sure. I think my issue is that I have trouble visualizing. So, like, I think this one, Brotherhood, Jedi Master, or Master and Apprentice, I feel like those ones have been some of my favorite books because, like, High Republic was fun and good, but it's a lot more of me trying to put together what it looks like and what the worlds are like and who these Jedi are. Whereas since my visualization mentally is maybe less than maybe yours or other people's, I feel like when I'm taking like this one, I'm picturing like there's Anakin from Clone Wars, here's Thrawn from Rebels, here's Darth Vader, I know what Darth Vader looks like, and I'm putting what I already know of them together, and it works really well for me. And I don't have to do that when I watch something because clearly it's just there it is.
Well, and it's Star Wars. It's not extremely subtle. Like when you're watching Episode 1 and you see Darth Maul and you go, well, that's a bad guy.
Sure, yeah.
Visually, I can tell in 1 second and looking at him, bad guy. You can't do that in literature unless you're just told.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, Star Wars belongs in the visual medium. I mean, the reason lightsabers are so great is because of the visual and the sound and all the stuff that it makes you feel. And I never really get, the feeling I get from when I hear versus reading snap hiss. It just doesn't compare.
It's different, sure.
Yeah, so it's different. I don't really. It's not like I prefer one over the other, but they're different. So.
What'd you see?
Oh no, I was just looking through some of these ones with specifically these are the Thrawn questions, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to find more Thrawn related ones to make sure. Gorachi says, do you think we will learn more about the Grisk, and do you think we will see them in live action? I mean, they're out there, right? We didn't. Some got away at the end, right?
Well, Thrawn talks about at the end how he's like, well, these ones, this isn't like
that's not all of them.
Like I said what I said to like all of the Grisk, and these ones might take it this way, but when they get back home, those guys won't care,
Sure.
So they're still out there, yeah. I mean, they're like their own empire.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to expand. That's why they were trying to get the technology in the first place, right? So they could. Or that's why they're trying to get the young Chiss children.
Yeah.
He takes them back, and now the Grisk can no longer just freely go in the galaxy. They have to stick to their hyperlanes.
Yeah, now they're limited. And
there's only, 2 or 3.
Maybe, I'm not against seeing them for live action or some kind of visual form, animated or any of that.
Yeah, they talk a little bit about what they look like, but like how they they're, right, it's the Grisk that have the helmets that on one side it's kind of messed up, and on the other side it's more pristine. Is that the Grisk, or was that another?
I think that's them. There's something about them. For some reason, I was picturing them kind of buggish, but I think it's because I was picturing their bug weapons too.
Things, yeah.
So I was just a bunch of bug people. But that's Geonosians too that are very buggy. Mm-hmm. But
I think just because it's not a visual format. I'm not the Grisk. I wouldn't, if they show up and I see a screenshot, I won't be like, it's them.
Sure.
I'll be like, who's that? Oh, it's a Grisk.
Yeah. But I'm not against having them. And even if we, I know some people talk about man, it'd be cool if we brought in the Yuzang Vong. I'm like, well, that could be neat, or maybe Thrawn maybe Ahsoka stuff has to do with Grisk. Maybe it doesn't. Mm-hmm. Maybe it just has to do with Thrawn. But I don't know what Thrawn's been doing. So if you did bring them in, I wouldn't be against it. But it just depends on how the story plays out, I think, as to what we do with that species or that race.
Sure.
But no, I think it could be cool. I'm not against any of that idea. I like having, especially going into the future of Star Wars and trying to find other avenues for storytelling that isn't tied directly to the Skywalker saga and all that kind of stuff too. Well, what kind of enemies or antagonists will we have for some of these types of stories and stuff?
Yeah.
Are we always fighting the Empire? Are we always fighting the Sith? Or can we find some other things in the galaxy that are antagonistic that can cause a problem, but aren't just those things?
Mm-hmm.
Could the Chiss Ascendancy be a problem, and we have to actually deal with them at some point? I'm I don't know, maybe. Or do we ally with them to take out the Grisk?
Yeah.
And that could be kind of okay too. I'm not.
Padme ask him to come back, or Anakin asked him to come back to Coruscant, and he's like, that's not my business.
Mm-hmm.
To maybe talk about something with the Republic and them.
Yeah. So no, I think that's an interesting idea, Garachi. And if they ever do that, I feel like I would. I'd probably embrace it as long as they just make it seem like it flows well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want them to come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But I love having those connections.
Yep. All right.
There's another one you got, Eric. Do you see one? Also, before we get to the next one, too, I saw in chat and also Shilin, who said that the comic is an adaptation of the first book. It's not a comic somewhere else. So they made a comic of the first.
I might have known
Thrawn
that
book
because Nexus, who helps us out with some stuff, he was sending us pictures from the last book, and it looked like it was
from the comic and stuff. Okay,
that makes sense.
That'd be kind of interesting to read through or something like that too. But so that's where. So there is a comic. It's not covering anything different.
Darkwing says, would you class Thrawn as evil? I feel like he's written to always be in the gray area. Every action has a reason and no malice, but always has a purpose. It's the best part of what Zahn did in this book. Why not both?
No.
It's whatever he needs to achieve victory. It's not about revenge. It's about victory.
It's what I like
Sometimes
a lot about
ruthless.
him being in the Empire and stuff too, and why I think I like him more than Tarkin, where Tarkin is just well, I don't really sympathize or empathize with things that he's doing.
Yeah.
You know, he grew up in a very tough environment and came out the way he is.
Yeah.
And he doesn't necessarily care about a lot of this stuff. But I feel like Thrawn has a little bit more of that gray side, and it's like, I will do things to achieve the purpose of what I'm doing, and he's kind of a hero. But he also isn't just like, he's not sabotaging those around him. Like, I love that he brings Eli up with him, and he makes a point to be like, he's not getting promoted. Yep. I need him to get promoted. I don't want him to just be my interpreter. I want him to grow with me.
Sure.
And I like those aspects, and I can't necessarily picture, like, Tarkin doing that stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the reason why this book especially, or these books especially over, like, Rebels, puts him in, like, that gray area. And I'm not just looking at him as, like, another evil Tarkin, you know, officer guy. But he's clever and, you know, figures out all these mysteries.
Yeah, I mean, he is the Imperial version of, oh, man, why can't I think of his name right now? Andor. Skarsgård.
Luthen?
Luthen. Yeah, he's like the Imperial version of Luthen. Like, he's for you, but don't piss him off.
Yeah. He has this mission that he's going for and what he's trying to do. And
he is out there in the gray, yeah. Well, is that going to be all the stuff we have for Thrawn?
For Thrawn?
Yeah.
I mean, we have about 40 minutes roughly before we usually cut off, so we can try to cut into other topics.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions for, you know, more
things
general Star Wars
aren't
stuff.
specifically for Thrawn or the Rebels and whatnot.
Yep.
What is? I want to read one more here because I saw Ahsoka mention it too from Caleb. While other questions come in, we can look at this. Do you think the reason for them not letting Timothy Zahn use Ahsoka was because maybe Dave had some idea that he would use Ahsoka and Thrawn in a story someday?
I would imagine so. Yeah.
I think you could do that. If it's meant to still be after the events of after the events of her leaving, right? You might not want to have more interactions with Anakin and Ahsoka.
No.
You know, like that's kind of the story they went with the Clone Wars Season 7 and stuff.
Sure.
It's like, you know, Anakin and her haven't seen each other. So, like, there's been that time lapse as opposed to him going and saving her.
Yeah.
And so far, and I think if we get into the Ahsoka book doesn't really cover too much before Anakin turns into Vader, I don't think. I think it covers after those events more so. But having that time when she's gone and it's not him coming to her rescue and all those kind of things may diminish a little bit of them coming back together in Clone Wars. So I think it's more so not maybe for Ahsoka and Thrawn, but more so for like what they were thinking about. Like, I'd love to do more Clone Wars stories, and hopefully we can. And Rebels was going to be wrapping up. Maybe they already had ideas in the works for doing another Clone Wars season.
Yeah, I mean, they were,
and it would feel like it would maybe contradict some of that or lessen.
I wonder
the
when they
emotion.
started production of Siege of Mandalore too. You know, like they, you know, that's Ahsoka. Ahsoka is Dave's character. You know, like he's not going to just give that to anybody to do stuff. You know, he wants to be involved. So, and I get that. I think that he's earned it.
Sure.
Honestly.
Well, it's like if you ever have, and I don't know, especially in a book format, I think you can be like, okay, we want to bring your character from the book into a cartoon or into a movie or into a TV show. Let's bring you in here and have you help make sure that this character feels like what you have been writing.
Yeah.
And I feel like that might be easier to do than to be like, all right, you write a book, and I'll tell you if you write my character wrong after you've written it, right? Like, you can give them notes of how you want your character to interact, but still, like, I feel like it's a different point of like, let me read this. Okay, this is all wrong. Now you got to edit it. Versus like getting that script first and now portray the character. Yeah, feels different for some reason to me.
I get you.
All right. All right. Interesting. Tam Tam says, which real life military leader, alive or dead, would you say is Thrawn most similar to?
I mean, I don't know military leaders well, but I can just say what I've heard, which was Dave Filoni being on stage in front of all those people at Celebration and talking about how it was supposed. It's Patton, right? General Patton. Like, this is a character that will outthink you. Like, there's nothing you can do because he is prepared and he is ready for everything that you're going to do, and he's planned for it. You know, so I guess I have to. I am forced to say Patton.
Default to that because I don't know what the alternatives would be necessarily. Sure, I understand that.
Yeah.
All right. We'll move on to. Let's go down a little bit more, Gunk. Darkwing, I don't think we did this one yet. Do you think Thrawn works a lot better in a book format where you can see or hear his inner thoughts and seeing people's facial features, etc., whereas opposed to on screen, it would just be a quick look potentially? I do think there's things in book format that I've gotten that I like better than watching visually.
Yeah.
The usage of force when it's being described doesn't come across as well, I don't think, of like how much energy are they exerting? How taxing is this on their body? I'm watching it like I'm watching a superhero fight, and I'm just like, yeah, look at him go. And I'm not thinking about like all the effort that's going into it. And I think it's similar to the same idea of like, how's Thrawn figuring out how someone is lying to them or what they're doing, and having that book, which I feel like this book did it less than the first book, and I kind of missed that a little bit, but then they'd bring it back in every once in a while.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the question is like, is it better? Like, you play to the strength of the format that you're in, right?
Sure.
So if it's not going to work visually, you don't do it. If it's not going to work in literature, you don't do it that way, right? Like, I don't necessarily think one is better than the other. It's just, if you're going to, if you're going to have the caliber of actor like Lars Mikkelsen, be there, then you're going to start reading into a lot of the things that he does, because he can give you those certain looks, and he's so subtle and he's so threatening while whispering,
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we do it all the time when Vader is actually a perfect thing. Like, when it's Vader, we can be in his head. And I know exactly what he's thinking. But in the movies, I have no idea what he's thinking. And what I think he's thinking changes depending on what era I'm watching from. If I was just watching the original trilogy, I could think that he's thinking something completely differently. But after watching the prequels, I can say, no, he's thinking about this. And it's completely different. And you can only do that in a movie when, there is no, they pause for a moment and think about what you will, but in a movie you can pause on Vader's mask and try to guess. But the book doesn't just like stop and let you think about it, You generally know what he's thinking because you're in his head.
Sure.
So it's just, there's strengths on each one.
It makes me think of like when the Falcon escapes in Empire.
Yeah.
And he's like looks and he looks down and he looks and he looks back and he walks away.
And he doesn't kill anybody.
Yeah, I'm like, what's he thinking there? Is he thinking about Luke? Is he thinking about, is he angry because it escaped? Is he thinking his people have failed him? I don't know exactly what he's thinking about. Whereas in a book you do, but you're just watching that.
Exactly.
And I also relate it maybe to what you're saying with like, with doing like a fight, like doing choreography. I don't think like, is a live performance better or worse than a film performance?
Yeah.
Like, they're going to be different, right? If
Very
you're doing
different.
something live, it may be needing to be looked at in a 360 format or maybe 180 degrees. Whereas in filming aspects of that, you don't have to necessarily sell things the same way as you would on a live format.
Yeah.
Like you can use camera movements to hide and change the way things look to where it looks more dangerous or more, I don't know, a closer swing and stuff like that.
Well, you can also, across an edit, the way you're doing an effect can completely change, but the audience doesn't know that.
Sure.
So it's selling that magic trick, and literature doesn't necessarily have those type of magic tricks, right? Like, it's what's on the page.
Sure. And
that's all there is. But film, you bring your eyes and your thoughts into it, and the filmmaker sometimes leaves that open.
Sure.
I mean, it can happen in literature, but it's a different language.
Yeah.
Artistic language.
I think to come back towards the initial question with like, is he better in Rebels or is he better in the books? All I know so far is that I definitely enjoyed him a lot in Rebels, and then I just feel like I had more of him in this book.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's necessarily that I enjoyed him more in the book, but there was more of him.
I enjoyed him in Rebels. I got to know him in the book.
Sure.
I guess, right?
So, no. I enjoyed both. I don't have one that necessarily takes over the other one yet.
Yep.
The werewolf says, the book gave us the unlikely duo of Thrawn and Vader. What other unlikely Star Wars duos would you like to see a story about?
Damn. Like Wicket and Palpatine. Stuck on alien world, forced to survive. I know there was Lords of the Sith, and we haven't read that yet, and that's Vader and Palpatine, but just imagine with Wicket.
Dude, Vader and Palpatine sounds like a fun. Like that's something I don't feel like I get a lot of.
Yeah.
You know.
I think Lords of the Sith is about Vader and Palpatine are stuck on a planet.
I do know.
I want to read that. We'll eventually get to everything. Or we'll die first, but we'll get there.
There's one. I don't know if it's I don't think it's a spoiler. The book itself covers like an adventure with like Luke and Lando.
Oh, Secrets of the Sith?
Maybe.
Shadow of the Sith.
Something Sith.
Shadow of the Sith.
And I think that's...
Yeah, I keep saying, like, I'm going to read that, and Nexus keeps saying, no, not yet.
We can't do it yet.
You can do other things
we'll
first.
Get to it somewhere.
Dang it, Nexus. I saw someone just on Twitter the other day being like, man, I thought I liked the sequels before, and then I read that book.
Damn.
I know,
that sounds
right?
Cool. And it's also, like, that's a combination of, like, characters where, like, even in the original trilogy, you don't really get that that much, right? Yeah. Like, Lando's around, but when Lando's around in Empire, Luke's not there.
Nope.
Right? And then when Luke...
some guy named Skywalker. They didn't even meet. Do they ever talk to each other?
No. I mean,
he nods at Lando.
Lando is there whenever, like, the Jabba thing's happening. Yeah. But then, like, Luke jumps over, and then it's Han, Lando, and Chewie still over there. And then whenever we get back up, like, he's there for the meeting, but then he takes the Falcon.
With you too.
And then Luke leaves, so he's on the... So, like, they're never really together, you know? So I find that to be an interesting duo that I've never seen.
I want to see that. Yeah, I want to read that.
And then past that, I'm trying to think of anything else really, and I'm sure there's tons of really cool things that would be fun to have.
Yeah.
But like that's one where like as far as especially good guys, I'm like that would be a neat story because they're different characters that I've never felt like they've interacted really before.
Hondo and Grogu.
That's okay.
I mean, we know Hondo's weakness is kids. Okay. Right? He just likes kids, but he also has a sordid history with Jedi and stuff. That might be kind of fun.
Sure. That could be interesting. Okay. Yeah, I don't have any others right now off the top of my head, but I love the idea of having a Lando and Luke. Yeah. And I'm glad they have a book about that too, but
sure.
Maybe taking like, you know what? I want a story that involves Kira and Maul.
Kira and Maul.
Right?
Yeah.
Like there's that connection.
Crimson Tide.
I want to see them having to do stuff together.
Come to me on Dathomir. You and I will be working much more closely from now on.
Let me see that story.
Let me see it.
Well, let me see them work closely together. So let's go to that. Next it says, do you have any alternate universe thoughts if the TIE Defenders got the funding, especially seeing how well Vader flies one?
I mean, yeah, he gives like, it's like the only time you ever see Vader give like a compliment. Like, hey, this is pretty good. You know, he had some thoughts on how to change it, and it feels like those thoughts were put into effect in season 4 of Rebels. But
what's the TIE that he flies, like in A New Hope?
The TIE Advance.
TIE Advance, that's what it is. Yeah, because I was trying to think. I'm like, what was that one? Because that one had a different name.
Yeah,
it wasn't just a TIE fighter.
It's more Inquisitor Cinar system TIE Advance thing. But the Defenders have like the three.
Yeah, the
like
tri-look,
like an interceptor look to them or whatever. I mean, I was hooting and hollering whenever Scarus was, out there in this book that we read. There's that scene where it's like, well, those TIE Defenders, oh, no, they can. They're really good. Okay, Thrawn might make more sense.
Sure. I mean, if those would have came out like that, I feel like that would have caused a lot more problems with, like, interceptors are tricky. TIE fighters already are just usually in numerous numbers, right? That's usually the thing is, like, I feel like there was so many of them, but they don't really have shields and stuff. They're easy to take out.
I mean, Thrawn does not like the Death Star.
Yeah.
And why? Well, because he's a master strategist, and he would be like, well, the fatal flaw is you got one. So what happens if it breaks? Like, what do you mean? It's not going to break. Look how big it is. It's like the Titanic all over again. Look how big it is. It's not going to break.
What's it going to break about it?
And then it breaks, and they're like, what are we going to do? It's like, we'll build another one. Poor Thrawn, what? You build another one? Just build cool ships.
Did you listen to me?
He's out. That would be a great scene in Ahsoka. He comes back and he's like, "I've been gone from the, from the
what
galaxy.
has happened?
What did they do after the first Death Star? Oh, they built another one. What happened to it? They blew it up.
They didn't get it built all the way either.
They blew it up again.
Like they destroyed it before they finished the outside. It shot stuff though.
And then he's just like, "All right, now that we've built the second Death Star, can we start working on the Defender program?" Well, we've been mining Ilum, and the Emperor has this idea that, it might be this thing called Starkiller Base so that he can use that to threaten all the governor, It's like, okay.
Well, what's that look like? It's a planet turned into a Death Star.
It's a big Death Star.
It's like, what? But it sucks up his sun.
Yeah. That's why he's the heir to the Empire, folks. He has different ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I love, too, them kind of talking about that in Mandalorian, right? Like, they're, like, talking like, well, what about Thrawn, What
the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Bring him back, and he'll be helpful, and Gideon's like, eh.
I mean, it implies that there's at least some communication or something. I don't know. Pelion was there,
Yeah.
That's the big thing that is missing from the old novels to this one is no Pelion.
No Pelion?
Yeah. He was a really cool second in command. Fell in love with them.
I do think if they would have went with the TIE Defenders, I don't think the rebellion would have stood up.
Yeah.
Because I think the biggest thing, like, that thing is just, like, it's so much trickier to take out.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I think helps them is, like, the X-Wings and all that stuff. Like, they can travel through hyperspace. They have their shields.
Mm-hmm.
They can take out the TIE fighters and still survive more hits. So it's the numbers they have. But if those were all faster, tougher, like everything else that the X-Wings and stuff have.
I mean, Hera says, like, if these things get out and they make more, we're done.
Yeah, and she's a great pilot.
She's the best pilot.
Who's better than her? Luke.
Luke and Anakin maybe, but that's because they have cheat codes on.
Yeah, right.
Like they have, like, aimbots and stuff. Like, Hera's doing it legit.
Yeah.
Live on Twitch.
So good. Live on Twitch. All right. Well, thank you, Nexus. I like that. That's a good idea of, like, what would have happened with this. What about with all the stuff that's from Sabotage, with all the stuff coming from animation, games, etc., and made in live action, if you could pick one thing to bring into live action, what would it be? For me, it would be Commando droids.
Ooh, Commando droids in live action would be cool. I mean, if you had asked me a couple years ago, I'd be like, let's find out what happened to Thrawn and Ezra and pick up on that. I mean, I also would have been very happy with an animated show that did that too, but to see it in live action.
We're getting a TV show, and we're getting a movie.
Yeah.
I guarantee the movie has to be called Heir to the Empire. I feel like that's what they're going to do, right? Like the Filoni movie they're doing. Like,
it's gotta be.
I feel like this Ahsoka show is going to build up what's happening here. We really go with Ahsoka, maybe some between world stuff.
It'll cross
figure
over
out
with
what's
Mando
going with Thrawn,
and Boba.
And then we're going to bring that movie and have everything come together. Like, we got to get Din because he's out retired with his kid. We got to get him to help us. Get that little yes droid coming in. Like, we'll get all that. We'll go grab, whoever, Cobb and Boba, bring them all together, and we got to fight Thrawn and his, I don't know, Chiss Ascendancy or whatever he's doing. Like, I'm really excited for that.
IG-11 is fixed, though. No more right? He became sheriff.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. We can still go get him then, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, man. Trying to bring, like, video games. I mean, I am a Kyle Katarn fanboy, and not the YouTuber, though he's very good. I mean, Kyle Katarn, the character.
Sure.
It would be cool to bring him in at some point, but everything that made him has been taken by other characters. Like, he was the guy that stole the Death Star plans, and he was the guy that did this and this and this, and that's all gone now, or taken by other characters. So
sure,
even just a cameo would be fun.
Yeah, because he was involved.
I got a ship
in the first plans, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I got a ship, the Outrider, the YT 1200.
The Outrider, isn't that Dash Rendar's?
Oh yeah, it totally is.
Okay.
No, I mixed that up. The Ravenclaw.
The Ravenclaw
is the name.
See, I don't know his.
Ravenclaw?
I don't know Kyle's.
That's
ship.
from Harry Potter. Raven Crest. I have too much franchise in my brain, Aaron.
You mean you mean the Razor Crest?
No.
Oh, okay.
I think it's the Raven Crest. Crap.
I have messed you all up.
Nexus, tell me. But what else though? What else?
What's another thing to bring into live action? I would love.
We got the Pikes in the live action. That was cool.
Yeah, Pikes coming in live action was pretty neat. The what else is good? What else is really good? Mainly, we had Cad Bane coming to live action. Like, that was something I didn't think I'd get.
That
I was
so
like, oh
awesome.
my gosh, look at him, and he looks pretty cool.
Be careful where I'm sticking my nose if I were you.
I watched it again with the kids and stuff recently. Like, we were like 2 episodes away from being done with Mandalorian, and like I'm like, man, you know what? I like how he looks in this.
Sure.
Like, it looks pretty good. I think he looks better than the Pikes do.
Yeah.
But what's another good live action thing? Man, I don't know.
We're getting Chopper.
There's
That's
so
what I
much
want.
stuff. Yeah, but he's already been there.
Yeah, but not like this, dude. He's got bodies. Like, how many people do you think he's going to kill in Ahsoka? No, seriously, though. Like, let's make a prediction.
3.
He kills 3 people?
3.
That is way under his normal
You think
rate.
he's going to just come in killing everybody?
He killed hundreds in Rebels. Isn't that like it's a small number? He's killed a lot more people. He blew up that whole space station.
Yeah, I guess, but
like he's definitely gonna kill 4.
I don't think that's gonna happen. You're playing that one game, Price is Right or whatever. Right. You were one higher. What about who have we not had?
Quinlan
There's been
Voss.
so many things that we have had. Quinlan, we've kind of had already.
Well, they mentioned him,
right? Isn't he like in the background on episode 1?
No, he was supposed to be. But they cut it out. He was supposed to be like on a Juggernaut tank on Kashyyyk, but I don't think it was actually even filmed.
I thought like he's in the background in Cantina for episode 1 somewhere.
Oh,
right?
yeah, I
Isn't
suppose that's
Quinlan
what
there?
you mean. Okay,
right?
Gotcha. But when you're saying bringing in, I'm thinking like new, but yeah, that was the first appearance.
Yeah,
which is just. Some guy saw him in the background and was like, the guy with the yellow stripe on his face. That would be a cool character.
After meeting him in Clone Wars and also reading the Ventress book and everything, Dark Disciple, like I would like to get more of what his story is, especially when we had in Obi-Wan where, look, there's his name carved there.
Master
stuff,
Voss.
That's really cool.
It's just nuts to hear Ewan McGregor say Master Voss. I don't know why that's nuts to me. I felt the same way when, like, James Earl Jones first said
Ahsoka.
The apprentice lives, and I'm like, oh fuck,
yeah, that's what it was. The apprentice lives. It's like that's James Earl Jones saying that.
No, the Ahsoka moment that's Matt Lanter.
That's Lanter, yeah.
Ahsoka.
No, I love that. Damn it.
Then you will die. Oh, chills.
See, I don't know that I would want Star Killer necessarily brought into anything. I would
not the way that he's there, and that's precious to me. I love Star Killer.
Yeah,
I love that character, but an Inquisitor version would be cool.
You know what? Maybe I would just say Hondo.
Yeah.
Like the closest we have with him being in live action is him over there in the
Galaxy's
Edge thing, right? Like
spend your money.
Yeah, I think having him in live action would be really fun. Having him pair up with Lando,
yeah,
like that cool. Could be. We talked about duos and stuff before. Like that could be fun. Like I just really like Hondo.
Yeah,
I think seeing a live action version of him would be kind of cool to have. So maybe that's one. Cause I'm just going through mainly I'm thinking of animation because my book knowledge of Star Wars isn't as big, especially if you go back and look at legend stories,
which they're doing that a lot now.
I like Shadows of the Empire, but I don't know if I'm man, I really want Dash Rendar to show up. I don't think that's one where I'm that's what I need.
I got one. I want to see. I mean, you can do this like a Clone Wars story or flashback, live action Asajj Ventress.
Asajj Ventress
that would
great.
Be cool.
Well, I mean, here's one of the things I've talked with Melanie about that I think would be really cool with the Ahsoka series, and maybe we talk about it too. If they do go into the idea of world between worlds, she could maybe end up at any time with anybody. You could have her meet Ventress again. You could have her talk to. Yeah, you could have her talk to Rey.
Yeah,
or who knows what.
Sure.
So my big concern is I feel like with the Ahsoka series and or the movie, we have to be leading probably towards her death because she also talks to Rey at the end of the final movie, right? Like her voice is there, so I'm well, she must be dead.
I mean,
she's doing that.
Yoda's voice reaches Ezra in the Jedi Temple, and he's not dead.
Yeah, I suppose so. But
I know what you mean.
I feel like that's
I just wanted to throw that
different
in there.
moment, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Leia specifically tells Rey to try to contact the Jedi who came before, and that doesn't really fit with someone that's the Jedi who's
still around,
not here, but on speed dial. Yeah, I get you.
So I don't know. I think that could be. I think it could be interesting depending on.
Or she's alive and she's out there and she joins Rey's new Jedi Order. She's not a Jedi anymore, but she might be one of the new ones.
So is that why she was the Jedi that came before? Because she's not a Jedi now, but that was the Jedi Ahsoka, not present day Ahsoka talking to her.
Revenge is not the Jedi way.
No,
I am no Jedi.
But I feel like there's a lot of possibilities that we could get from Ahsoka in the world between worlds kind of thing, and we've seen a lot of those circles and things happening. So I'm what are they gonna do? And I feel like there's so many possibilities, and I'm really excited to see what they do, and I hope it's fun.
Yeah.
Did we answer whatever the question was?
What do you want to bring in?
I'll stick with Hondo.
Yeah, I'll stick with all the way to the beginning. Commando droids, that'd be cool.
I saw one here. Shahru. I'm sure I said that right.
Yep.
Which Legends books did you enjoy?
Oh, so many.
You have a lot more of these than I do.
Yeah.
Like I have Revan.
You had the Revan book.
And I have the first Bane book. That's all I remember reading of Legends.
Gotcha.
I have wanted for a long time. And I thought about like tossing this out there at some point, being like, hey, October's coming. Maybe we could do the Death Trooper book. Because I've never read it. And I was like,
I would do that.
The idea just sounds so cool, but it's also a Legends book and it's different than what's in canon and stuff.
Sure. Plagueis, I think, is probably up there, at least top 5. Man, I'd really have to think and research because when I was a kid during the summer, like my mom would just drop me off at the Washington County Library, and I would just go to the Star Wars section.
You'd steal other stuff.
I would, but I'd be there for like 6 hours a day.
Okay,
and just reading, So there's a lot of them, but I mean, Heir to the Empire, I think, is a fantastic read, and it might be fun for people. Like right now, I'm going into it having read Heir to the Empire and having all those kind of loose connections with Pelion and Joruus C'baoth and stuff like that. It would be really cool for someone to watch the Ahsoka show and then go back and read Heir to the Empire. That might be interesting.
That could be cool.
But other than that, Shatterpoint is very good. The Mace Windu novel.
You know what? I
did you read Shatterpoint?
I did do Shatterpoint. Yeah. I remember that because it was a neat story with Mace, and I remember elements and the planet sucked.
It was very dangerous.
Yeah. So no, I remember parts of that. I forgot. I had read that at some point.
Yeah. That had the guys that used shields like swords, and then Mace used his sword like a shield.
Like a shield. Yeah, I remember that. There was like a bunker thing he was attacking and trying to get into. So
yeah,
that one was pretty good. I like the Revan book a lot. Especially it bridges a lot of gaps between KOTOR and especially SWTOR.
Yeah.
And SWTOR also covered a lot of that because you had Drew Karpyshyn write a lot of stuff in SWTOR and in the Revan book. He wrote that too. So a lot of those story elements kind of transitioned over, and I thought that was really neat.
And then he was one of the main authors for the first Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was really good. And then the first Bane book I read because like everyone always talked about Bane and the Rule of Two and all that kind of stuff too. And I never got into the sequels of those.
Path of Destruction. Yeah.
But reading the first one, I was like, Bane's an interesting character. And he comes from this mining
I remember loving the way that he described lightsaber fights in that book, in the Bane book. They had like a Sith Academy and stuff. And he did, I never really liked the forms of lightsaber combat, but when they did them, I always thought he did them the best.
Gotcha, okay. Who wrote, that's for the Bane one?
Yeah. That's Drew Karpyshyn.
That was Drew as well? Man, so I just read a lot of Drew books.
You did? You really have. Almost exclusively.
So, but no, those are my favorites, but I also haven't read a whole lot. The Revan one is probably my favorite the most, but I was also, when I read that one, I read it because I was really into SWTOR.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll do like playing WoW back when I was like really into WoW, I was doing like lore diving because I was just trying to like, all right, let me get into this and really dive into it so that then my enjoyment of the game is even more because I'm like, oh, there's that. Oh, there's that. Kind of like when we watch Star Wars, I'm like, oh, that's Cat Bane, And like, yeah. Like, I feel like that just builds my excitement more for those kind of things. Yeah. So I was reading the Revan book trying to be like, what kind of connections are there in this storyline?
I'll have to do like an official list, like my top 10 Legends books or something. And then also, I've worked on a little bit, but I want to have like at least 10 rounds, but a 1 true 3 of can you tell me what I'm lying about in terms of what the Legends continuity did.
That would be interesting too, because like I feel like I know some stuff, but I don't know a lot.
Let's use your ignorance against you.
Yeah, so like you could be like, like there's a race of organics that can fight Jedi. Darth Vader's glove gives you superpowers, or
a crying mountain on Endor.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know. Those all sound kind of ridiculous, Yeah.
No, that'll be fun, but I want to have a good set of them, so I'm still working on that. That'll be upcoming for a future Badonkagonk.
That'd be fun. All right. Alice says, what era of Star Wars are you most hyped to get information on? For me, I would have to say the first Jedi.
Ooh, the Prime Jedi, yeah. Yeah. All of those new eras, that timeline that we saw, Celebration.
I'm excited.
Gotta get that shirt
for that. I also, the Acolyte coming out, like that. in the High Republic era stuff, like just getting more of that visualization.
So
like
hyped for
when we
that.
did High Republic, it was awesome that like Nexus helps us with a lot of this stuff, and he'll send us like, hey, here's this picture of this guy, here's this picture of this girl, here's this picture of this alien, and I'm like, okay, I can kind of picture. Oh, here's a rock, I'm like, okay, he looks like a rock, but having a chance to actually like see it. I have watched what's it called? It was the Adventures of Young Jedis or whatever it is.
Oh, Jedi Adventure or whatever.
Yeah, the animated one that's like for kids and stuff. I watched with my kids a little
Cool.
bit and stuff too, and I was like, well, this is kind of cool getting to see like little bits of High Republic for like kids, and it's a very simplistic Star Wars-y like, these are bad guys, don't do this, and it's trying to teach lessons and stuff. And I'm like, this is cool. I like this. Especially for younger kids, like watch these. It's Star Wars.
Dude, when my nephew lived with us, like when he was super young, like I watched so much Blue's Clues, and now I know everything about Blue's Clues.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. Now you know, like a clue. You're not just like, what? You're like, you're right.
That changed my life. Every time I go to the mail, get my mail from my head, I'm always like, mail time.
But as far as like what era of Star Wars you most hyped to get information for, I mean, as long as they do a good job, and I don't know what they would do that I would feel like it would be bad. But like going back and telling like this discovery of the Force, or the first Force sensitives, or the first Jedi, and like those kind of things.
That's what we're getting.
That's
right?
it. That's
the indie director is doing that one, right?
It's an interesting idea. I don't know what they could do that I'd be like, well, that's dumb, or I don't know what they could do where I'm like, oh, I love that. I have no. Like, I have ideas for the Dave Filoni movie. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, man, it could do this, it could do this. That's so cool. The danger of that, though, is I hype myself up for something really sweet.
That's the thing.
And they don't do it.
I'm excited for it, but I don't want to go out and see, well, what do you think? And what do you think it's going to be? I do not want to set any expectation. Like, any expectation is going to ruin that for me.
Sure. Like, even me just being like, man, what if Ahsoka goes and she could talk to Ventress again? She could talk to Anakin again. She could, like, all these different elements. I'm like, that sounds really cool. But if they don't do that, am I setting myself up for failure? I mean, even they don't go that route.
Even Rey's New Jedi Order, like I have certain expectations. Like, okay, well,
Finn will be involved.
Finn is definitely going to be involved in there, and I know some people will be like, well, John Boyega's not coming back. I was like, we'll see.
Yeah,
do you hear that? That's a truckload of money coming. He's going to do it.
Can Force Ghost Luke be involved? And help teach her or whatever. Obi-Wan showed up in every movie, even though he died in the first one.
Well, and Lucas was going to have just straight up, like, I'm back now.
Yeah.
Because every time you saw him, like, you see him in Episode 4, he's just a voice. Yeah. In Episode 5, you can kind of see him on Hoth. Episode 6, he's sitting on a rock.
Yeah.
And then it was supposed to be that he's back, so...
I don't know.
It's not outside there exists a universe and a story in which Luke Skywalker could come back from being a Force ghost. But I don't know if that's what's going to happen. I don't know if I want it.
Sure.
But I'm excited for that type of thing. Honestly, to answer the initial question, Tales of the Jedi is exactly what I want.
Tales is so cool.
Yeah,
that could be anywhere too.
That Dooku story was it the best Star Wars of that year? It might be. My favorite.
I forget what all came out that year.
I know there's a lot.
Yeah, I know. But it was really good. Yeah. And it definitely set up to it's similar to Thrawn, right? Mm-hmm. Rebels Thrawn versus taking this context and being like, oh, now I'm more in his mind, I understand Thrawn better. Yeah. I feel like Tales of the Jedi did the same thing where it's like, I understand why Dooku did what he did much better than just watching the movies. And I love doing that. I love contextualizing things, and now I understand this big villain that I'm like, well, good, they killed Dooku. Now I'm like, man, he was just a tool for Palpatine. That's all he was. And he thought he was doing the right thing this whole time, and it's kind of terrible. Yeah. Sure, he also did really bad things, had no qualms about killing people and stuff too, so not good for that. But he was manipulated and, taken by Palpatine just like Anakin is,
Sure.
So, no, I would say getting more understanding of the Force through the beginning, 25,000 years into the past and whatnot, I think that's something that I'm really excited about because over time, especially with Rebels, with Between Worlds, with Clone Wars, with the Mortis trilogy, with all these different elements of what is the Force, with the sisters on Dathomir, the witches there. Yeah. There's a Force power throughout this whole galaxy. Yeah. And I don't know how or why, But maybe we get some more answers as to kind of like what and how it operates and what it can do or what it can't do or
so you would say that's the thing you're most excited for?
I think it's a thing because I have no expectations of what exactly to do.
I think I can ruin that for you.
Oh, no.
You want me to?
I guess
not. If you do The First Jedi and the founding of the First Jedi Temple on Ahch-To, you have to have porgs in it.
Why?
Because they're on Ahch-To.
Yeah, but can't they show up thousands of years later?
There's
what if they get brought?
Zero way that they go to Ahch-To and Lucasfilm doesn't go, oh my God, we can market porgs again.
What you can do.
The chances of that not happening is literally zero.
So there you go. It could be like, man, I can't say that. Never mind. There's something I want to say, but I technically can't say it because it's kind of like a spoiler. So I have to get into it later.
All right.
All right. What else do we have? What's another question? Eric, you pick one.
What if Padme didn't die in Revenge of the Sith?
All right.
What? We must ask the question. What if?
Man.
Anakin still would have... Well, I mean, she only died because of the sadness, right?
Sure.
And, being strangled on a lava planet where you can't breathe very well and stuff. And that will mess with and you're pregnant.
You're being pregnant, delivered twins.
A lot of people die in pregnancy and stuff like that happens.
So,
but if she did...
I don't know what... Some people just die from pregnancy, let alone having been strangled by a Force user who was angry, and I don't know how tight they were squeezing. Mm-hmm. What did that do to her?
So. I mean, Anakin still would have become Vader, right? He still would have been put in the suit.
So whenever he asks, where's Padme... And he is told you killed her.
Yeah.
You don't have that then, right? Mm-hmm. She got away. I think that then
Palpatine could still lie.
Does that leave a chance for Padme to save Anakin? Do you think, or do you think
if anybody could,
be
it
the
would
kids? Does it have to be like Luke?
It doesn't have to be Luke.
You think Padme could have done it? Because Padme couldn't turn him there.
Nope.
But also, I guess Obi-Wan was there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obi-Wan wasn't there when Luke showed up. If Luke would have shown up to talk to Vader and Palpatine, and then all of a sudden, a whole Rebel Force showed up, that might be different than if Padme had just gone to Mustafar and Obi-Wan didn't show up. Would that have changed? Would that have been different? I don't know.
It's interesting because Vader is ultimately saved by love. I mean, Padme is nothing to Anakin if not the love of his life.
Mm-hmm.
So could it happen? Yes, but also Anakin's big problem when it comes to Padme is that he tries to possess her. She is his, and I will not lose anything of mine ever again.
Sure.
So I think a really good writer wouldn't just be like, oh, hey, fucking Padme's alive. All right, takes it off, I'm going to be good again. No, that wouldn't happen, but it would be an interesting Elseworld story.
I mean, what would be interesting, maybe, because I don't know why Palpatine knows, right? Why does Palpatine know Padme's dead?
Because he sucked her life force out.
I guess they have a funeral at one point. But had they not, is there a chance she goes into hiding like Obi-Wan and Yoda does?
Mm-hmm.
There's a chance that you could still be like, well, Anakin died on Mustafar, like Obi-Wan believes. And Palpatine still tells that Padme was killed by Anakin.
Yeah.
But they just don't have the body anymore, maybe. Then you go into the idea of kind of similar to Luke in A New Hope. Right? Or Ahsoka. You have another one of those kind of things where it's there is this evil Darth Vader character, and Padme doesn't know who that is. And then you have that story where, she has to learn, or Anakin has to...
Sure.
Vader has to find her and, see her, and then what occurs there, I don't know.
It changes so much because 100% the twins would have been raised together with Padme,
sure.
Right? Yeah. Luke isn't Luke if he's not the farm boy that always feels like he doesn't belong.
Yeah.
Leia's not Leia if she's not the young maverick that knows there's something greater out there, but it's not this, but she still loves it,
Sure.
So it changes so much, but 100% those kids are raised by Padme.
I could see Padme taking the kids, leading them somewhere to raise them in hiding away from Palpatine and Darth Vader, thinking Anakin has died, he did these terrible things, but I don't know. Maybe you turn where it's now it's not it's not the little farm boy Luke who is able to save Darth Vader and turn him back to Anakin. Maybe it's Padme who does it, and it's a very different story, but it still comes around with family and stuff too, right?
Oh, what would piss Anakin off so much, or Vader so much? Padme doesn't die, and neither does Clovis, and Clovis is her stepdad. You know how mad he would be?
I guess so, yeah. That would really make him mad.
Clovis!
I I was wondering where, like, man, what's gonna make him so mad?
He'd be so mad.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else that would make him more mad with that. But
oh man.
For some reason, I thought you were gonna be like she was gonna go live with like the Tusken Raiders.
No. No, man. He talked about the sand. She got it.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It's a very different story having her survive, and it's very hard to kind of predict where it would go.
Sure.
But it's all about family. It is. The Star Wars is a lot about family. Even going to Mandalorian, it is about family / found family.
Yep.
So
generations.
Yeah.
What does an older character have to teach to the younger?
And what do we get out of like do we still get that kind of stuff through the rest of Star Wars that we get, right? Like Rebels, found family, right? Ahsoka can still kind of fit in with that, where it's like we're bringing together like what we have as a family. But can you also do that when you go back to Acolyte, to High Republic? Can you also do that when you go back 25,000 years to, the first Jedi? Can it still be about like family?
100%.
Family?
I mean, it saturates. I mean, all stories, but especially Star Wars stories. I mean, Rey, the whole first movie is about, like, for me, one of the best parts of that movie no one talks about, The Force Awakens, is when, like, Finn just comes around the corner and they meet Rey, and she's like, "You came back?" And no one's ever done that for her,
Sure.
So, like, that's kind of a family thing there.
Yeah.
So, like, it's very predominant.
And even Andor covers a lot of that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, he is taken in by
Marva. Fuck the Empire.
So, no, I'm
How
curious
would you have
to
felt
see.
if they actually dropped an F-bomb? Because apparently it was close.
Really?
He was fighting for it. They were she was gonna say that.
I mean, it's something that Star Wars hasn't had.
No.
Like, I remember being surprised back when I'll see you in hell,
Sure.
I was like, all right, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe. It could be.
It would have been too much. I don't think it would have fit, but I would have, in the moment, I would have been like, oh!
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it would be too much. I don't know.
Yeah.
It depends on how they do it. Sometimes I think it's fine. Other times I'm like, you don't need it.
It would be too much in the same way that, like, the sex stuff in that Jedi book, Jedi Survivor
And
prequel.
you felt like that was too much, right?
I just felt like, I get it. It's too much, though. Yeah.
So,
Gunk liked that part.
I think it's time that we are wrapping up. We're running out of time here, guys.
Can
It's
we get
already
one
hit
more
5 o'clock.
question?
Let's do one more question.
One more question, Gunk.
One more question, and then we'll wrap up after that.
I want to do one more.
All right, what's one more question then, Eric?
If Disney did a Star Wars What If style animated show, what alternate stories would you want to see?
Well, we just had a conversation about one with the idea of
I got others.
Padme surviving.
Satine asked Obi-Wan to leave the Jedi Order, and he does, and he becomes her like Mandalorian captain, escort. That'd be cool. You imagine like Obi-Wan who's left the Jedi Order and he's in love with Satine, and she because of that, like, and she doesn't have that kind of maybe she becomes more warlike or something, like, because things have changed. She's no longer a pacifist, and now she's like the Mandalorian Bo-Katan, in a way. And then Obi-Wan's there fighting with what he used to be a Jedi, but now he's a Mandalorian.
Sure,
that would be cool.
And then he survives Order 66 because of that kind of thing. So now he can survive later into things. But I don't know. Maybe who stops Anakin? Maybe Anakin doesn't become Darth Vader then because Obi-Wan couldn't fight him for it.
That would be a fun one.
Or maybe they never found Anakin because. I don't know. I mean, there's more Qui-Gon that found Anakin, so he would probably just have a different Padawan. But maybe that Padawan didn't take Anakin Skywalker as his Padawan and listen to the Jedi orders. Then you never got him either.
What if Qui-Gon didn't die?
What if Qui-Gon didn't die? I think is a very interesting one that I would love to see kind of like thought through, because that was, Dave Filoni talked about that with the galleries, I think it was.
Disney Gallery, which I haven't seen the new one for.
Mandalorian.
They put out a new one.
I saw one that had like Katie Sackhoff on it.
I gotta
was
watch
like, ooh,
that.
I haven't seen that.
I might watch that tonight. Just remembered it just now.
Just remembered it. But I think that would be an interesting story to see, like, where does Anakin end up with Qui-Gon as his master?
Yeah,
and I love the idea of seeing that. What if Jar Jar was a Sith? I know that people have had that
big doo-doo this time.
Could you imagine, like, you have him in Episode 1 and he's been traveling along with you the whole time, but he has been the Sith that Palpatine sent, not Darth Maul?
He just like stabs Palpatine in the back, puppet. I'd watch that.
Like, that could be really fun. I like that idea too.
Yeah. Star Wars did Visionaries back in the day too, which was just like alternate versions, or
that's like a comic, right?
Yeah, it's a comic. Like they had What If Vader didn't die when he turned.
Yeah.
And he comes out and he's a Jedi again. He has a white Vader suit, blue saber.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
White and blue.
There's a lot of cool what if stuff you can do.
Yeah.
And I feel like they should just come to us and we'll write that show.
We'll write the what if show.
We'll write the what if show.
Just do like the Marvel what if, and it just you spend like 20, 30 minutes just.
Yep.
Here's a general idea of what that would be like, and then we'll move on to another one. But
we can do like really dumb, subtle ones too. Like, what if Anakin went left instead? Like, what if Anakin didn't go after Dooku and stayed with Obi-Wan? They beat him. You know?
Yeah.
We can do real silly ones.
Yeah, that could be cool.
Yeah.
What if Padme didn't fall off the ship?
Yeah, right.
Like, what would have happened then? Would she have died to Dooku? You know, I don't know. So, I think there's a ton of really cool what ifs ones. But I love the Qui-Gon didn't die one.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Thank you.
Guys, yes, thank you so much. I appreciate having questions and getting to actually, we got like 30, 40 minutes of just being able to talk about other stuff, which was really cool. And
hey, yeah, we got to do this more often where we can maybe spend an hour next time and try to do it.
Sure. So thank you guys so much for submitting questions, and we'll try to make sure to get into more of those next time or in future ones as well. So.
What if Anakin went to therapy?
So the next Badonkagonk we have is going to be on the 3rd of, what month are we in? July? So the 3rd of August.
Yep.
So it's like almost a month away.
Thrawn treason.
Yes. So we'll be discussing that one too. Preparing ourselves for the Ahsoka series.
And I'm going to have my 1 True 3 ready.
Are you?
Yep.
So we do a 1 True 3.
Let's do 1 True 3 of Star Wars Legends.
Okay. So we'll talk about treason with Thrawn, and then we'll also be having a 1 True 3 where I'm going to be, and you guys can kind of play along too, but Eric will have like, here's some things from Legends. One of them is not real, right?
We're going to go
idea.
deep.
So
deep
let's see
into
what
the
kind
unknown
of things we get from that, and that will be fun. And